Warrior Lore. Chapter 665, Round Robin. Chapter 665, Round Robin. Proofreader, Papatonks. That's odd. How come the prick is up to his old tricks and won't fight this time either? Wu Qingqiu's side was puzzled as they watched Zhuofan. Hadn't he always treated Demon Soul Sect with respect? Why the acting? Why the antagonistic display? By not fighting in a team battle, he clearly looked down on them, holding them in contempt. His action was a hard and cold slap to Han Yunfeng's team's face. Leaving the slapping aside, why lift their hopes just now only to knock them down again? Just what is that prick thinking? They would never have guessed that it wasn't that Zhuofan did not want to fight. It was because he couldn't. His right hand got hurt from the brief encounter with the sacred sword. If misfortune had it that he exposed it, the exalted double dragons would see it, and he'd be finished. As for his left, it was nowhere near that strong. Favoring his weak left instead of that strong right would incur the same suspicion, so the best way to avoid it all was to show off and stay out of it. If Demon Soul Sect had just forfeited and let me fight Sword God Sects when Tao strayed out, then with his strength similar to a superior 3 Sects disciple, it would fit my plan perfectly. Then I wouldn't have to hide from anyone and not be so passive. But just what the hell got into Demon Soul Sect all of a sudden? While I do admire their guts, they're just too weak. I can't fake it with these weaklings. It'll only get seen through. The only choice is staying still. Scratched his nose. Zhuofan sighed inwardly. Han Yunfeng witnessed his action and was fuming mad, gnashing his teeth in hatred. What the hell's the meaning of this? I get you look down on us, but did you have to do it in front of everyone? Won't you even give us a few moves? Since you're so stuck up, what's with the show of respect from before in walking side by side? Are you toying with us? Han Yunfeng glared and said, Zhuofan, I will make you fight. Humph, to fight our steward Zhua, you'll have to go through me first. Qi Changlong stood in Han Yunfeng's way. This is a team battle, but we won't take advantage of your weakness and will go one-on-one. If you have what it takes to beat our 6 ethereal stage experts, then there will be no one to stop you from fighting Steward Zhua. What? A round robin of 1 against 6? Third young master Han cursed. You have no shame at all. My brother is in the 2nd layer of the ethereal stage, while just 3 of you are in the 3rd layer. Why not ask him to stand still so you can beat him? Quiet, brother. Han Yunfeng cut off the 3rd young master Han's rant. If it's a team battle, with only 2 ethereal stage experts, they could have 2 of theirs hold us back while the rest would kill our teammates. Then it will turn into 6 versus 2. How long do you think we will hold on then? 3rd young master Han paused, then let out a long sigh. Han Yunfeng's eyelid twitched and said, That's why this round robin looks like 1 against 6. The fights will never be one-on-one. This is in our favor. I accept. Great, then let's go. Qi Changlong walked forward, giving Zhuofan a look from beyond the others. Han Yunfeng's eyes narrowed. His body shook, and with a reverberating roar, a blue hundreds of meters tall winged lion appeared in a flash of light. With its appearance, the temperature dropped sharply, and a biting wind formed that chilled one to the bone. The crowd cried out, That's Han Yunfeng's soul? At once, the audience was boiling. Everyone knew the soul was an ethereal stage expert's strongest weapon, but also its weakness. So unless they had no choice, the fight was to the death, or they did not fear a heavy injury, the average man would not take it out, since if the soul was finished, so were you. So even in the middle 3 Sects round, the audience had not once seen ethereal stage experts taking out their souls. Even when Ren Song was being pummeled from all around, he would rather have his cultivation sealed than show his soul in fear of having it crushed. No one imagined that in the 2nd stage of the middle 3 Sects challenge round, Han Yunfeng would actually lay his soul bare at the very start. He was ready to go all out. Elder brother. His younger brothers cried in panic. Han Yunfeng waved them not to worry, his face hard. They are all tough opponents. I have to go all out from the start, or if the time drags out, it will work against me. Ha ha ha, what a brave man you are, eldest young master of Demon Soul Sect. Then allow me to accompany you with my own soul. Qi Changlong laughed and felt as if he had met a kindred spirit. His body shook, and yellow light spilled from him in a blink. A huge seal of 60 meters appeared overhead, giving an oppressive feeling. Wu Qingqiu's brow shook, and he cried, "It's actually a rarely seen tool soul, the seal of upheaval." Correct. Souls are commonly divided into beast souls, elemental souls, and domain souls. As for this tool soul, despite being rare, it is on the same level as a beast soul. And Han Yunfeng's soul is that of ascending howling lion, of bitter cold and extreme yin, the opposite of the seal's extreme yang. This makes it that the match will be decided on the strength of their souls. Yin Imo nodded as he analyzed. Yilin looked from the side, bored. It's Han Yunfeng's win. Why? Startled, the two turned to him. Reason dictated it should be Qi Changlong, who won since he had the higher cultivation. Yilin huffed, because he stakes his life. Bam! The loud sound came just as Yilin finished. Ascending howling lion and the seal of upheaval clashed in a terrifying rumble. However, in that short exchange, the seal of upheaval had 5 claw marks, with ice spreading around them. Qi Changlong shook all over and spat blood. At the same time, he took back his soul. He cupped his hands in admiration. Respect. You're too kind. Han Yunfeng returned his gesture even as his brow was soaked. Should this be his victory? He was, in fact, the more injured party of the two. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, and he admired Han Yunfeng. The kid is a damn feisty guy. He's unlike those fake young masters from Sects and even staked his life on the first attack. His upbringing must have had a heavy role to play in it. Demon Soul Sect is remarkable. Wu Qingqiu's brow shook as well. How can there be a fight like this in this day and age? As the forefathers say, pride comes before the fall. Even in a life and death struggle, one holds back some energy just in case, to change the tides and win or escape. But this guy had put up all he had and more, cutting off all his paths. If he couldn't have shaken off his opponent in the first strike, he would have been dead by now. The guy is ruthless. He is staking his life just for the chance to fight him. How can you guys even understand him? Yilin mocked. He has to fight 6 people, even in rounds. Even if he comes out victorious, he will be exhausted to death. The only way to save energy is to go out in full force. While he gives his life in every exchange, his opponent doesn't have the nerve to meet him. This leaves him with a margin to win and conserve his strength. But even so, one cannot say just how much energy he'd have left in the end. By the way, Yenemo, you said you wanted to spar with senior brother. But do you have the courage and thirst as he does? Yilin asked Yenemo. Yenmo's brow shook as he watched the next fight. This time Bai Lian went forth only to be defeated in 1 strike. But even though he saw Han Yunfeng panting, Yenemo shook his head with no admiration for the man. This guy is consumed with cultivation. Doesn't the demonic path contain obsession as well? This is the road he is walking. Huff. Despite having only struck twice in the valley, Han Yunfeng was breathing heavily, his head soaked in sweat. His brothers rushed over to help him. Brother, are you all right? Let's just forget it. They're making it hard for you and toy with you. With the way you are now, what's the point of defeating the 6 of them when you won't be able to even stand? This is pointless. With a slight twitch of his eyebrows, Han Yunfeng slowly looked at Zhuo Fan, only to see his solemn face and bland look. As if he looked down on him. Taking risks despite knowing it would fail was useless. But when Tao's words came to him, that cultivation meant going against the natural order. If he lost this chance to fight the strongest, he would feel regret for the rest of his days. Han Yunfeng once again straightened his back and took a deep breath as he stared at Zhuo Fan. Even if you do not put me in your eyes, mine will always be on you. My cultivation will never stop. Yes, that's the way, demonic young master. When Tao spoke as he witnessed the fights, this fight isn't to defeat him but to prove you fear no challenge. This is the only way you can go further. Xie Tianshang, next to him, looked at Han Yunfeng and then at Zhuo Fan. He nodded just like when he set Zhuo Fan as his rival. It wasn't to surpass him per se, but for himself to never stop pushing forward. Chapter 666, Soul Burst. Chapter 666, Soul Burst. Proofreader, Papatonks. Young Master Han, your next opponent shall be me. I won't be like the 2 you faced, and won't hold back at all. Please be ready. Lu Xie walked before Han Yunfeng with a leisurely gait, bearing a twisted smile glaring at him lightly. Han Yunfeng said, I know. These days have shown me that you are the foulest person of all demon-scheming sect. Haha. You're asking for it. Lu Xie's face fell, a bone-chilling bloodthirst flashing in his eyes. Then his body shook, and a huge green spider appeared in front. The green gas it released spread along the ground like a poisonous net. Han Yunfeng's brow shook and turned serious. He'd seen Lu Xie use this move before, with Mystical Heaven Sect, to cut the enemy off from all directions. In other words, Lu Xie planned on surrounding him instead of attacking him head-on. To finish in one move in this way, he became passive, making his plan to save energy fail here. He was sure this would become a stalling battle to wear him out. Instead, if it were just a single fight, this wouldn't matter. But in a round-robin, he could not let this happen. Qi Changlong couldn't help but sigh. Why is Lu Xie doing this? For young Master Han to fight all 6 of us is incredibly brave. Even if we are not exactly honorable, there's no reason to take it so far. You know as well as character. It's obvious one strike can win this. It's easy to win or give him a pass, but he would rather toy with him. Bai Lian scoffed. He plans on dragging this on. Something Han Yunfeng could never accept. Qi Changlong sighed and shook his head. Meanwhile, Han Yunfeng looked around the spreading poison, and with a roar, the ascending howling lion flapped its wings. The fierce gale slammed into the ground, turning the area around him into sparkling blue ice crystals. It was then that the spreading poison stopped. The moment the green gas touched the crystals, it would stop in its tracks. Han Yunfeng shouted, and ascending howling lion shot for the green spider, going all out once more. Humph, useless. I'm not going to take you head-on. Lu Xie snickered and made a sign. The green spider scattered like before into thick mist. The thousands upon thousands of tiny spiders raced for Han Yunfeng under the cover of the mist whoosh. Ascending howling lion's strike hit nothing, but it turned back and went straight for Lu Xie. Ignoring the incoming flood of spiders, he actually opted to go down with his enemy. Han Yunfeng is truly ruthless. Meeting someone like Lu Xie, who wants to exhaust him, he instead stakes his life, going all out. Wu Qingqiu sighed. Yenemo nodded. The kid's obsessed, and I like it. I hope to see him in the double dragon manner. For a person from middle 3 sects and just a second layer of ethereal stage as well, it will be hard to enter double dragon manner. It's all up to the exalted. Yenemo and Wu Qingqiu turned to the highest seats in the audience. Where the exalted sat, Lu Xie looked at the lion with a smug grin. Ha ha ha. The more anxious you are to end this, the more you'll tire. Lu Xie made another sign, and lines of green flashed all over the lion. Just like a net, those lines connected and trapped it at the same time. The green pattern on the ground released green smoke, connecting to the net roar. With a mighty roar, the lion found it could not advance at all, stuck in place grinning. Lu Xie gave Han Yunfeng a cocky look. Young Master Han, it's your bad luck to have met me. Do you know how a spider feeds? It traps its prey in a web, letting it struggle and beg for death, then slowly eats it alive. This is quite a lengthy process too. You were rash for a quick battle, but then you got me. Hi. Humph, that remains to be seen if your net is that tough. Han Yunfeng made a sign as his brow sweated harder. The lion roared as it struggled, and it trembled uncaring about the lion's actions. Lu Xie grinned. Poison explosion. Boom. The lion's body kept popping with great bangs sounding through the air. Han Yunfeng shook with every blow and even coughed up crimson blood. Brother! Third young Master Han and second young Master Han cried out in panic. The flying lion was Han Yunfeng's soul. Its wounds meant Han Yunfeng's soul wounds. It was such a heavy and sharp pain few could endure. The two gnashed their teeth and looked at Lu Xie in hatred, but Lu Xie only laughed. Young Master Han, you're Demon Soul Sect's eldest young master, so I can't take your life, but you should know when to give. It's time for you to admit your defeat to me. This is as far as you go. Han Yunfeng was Demon Soul Sect's young sect leader, and defeating him would give him great merit back at the sect. Lu Xie was blinded by greed, so he did not follow in Qi Changlong and Bai Lian's footsteps in fighting head-on. Victory and merit were worth more than anything. He would be willing to do anything as long as it would help his ascent. Han Yunfeng's face twitched in pain, but he actually mocked Lu Xie. Kid, you're not worthy? We'll just see about that. Lu Xie's face fell, and his sign changed. The thousands of tiny spiders charged for Han Yunfeng, but they froze in place when they touched the blue curtain of light. Just then, Lu Xie shouted, and the tiny spiders exploded, breaking through the blue curtain and allowing the spiders behind them to advance. Han Yunfeng was now at his most dangerous. With a string of constant explosions, the barrier of light shrank more and more until it was gone. Lu Xie trapped his flying lion, and explosions also assaulted it. He was stuck. Unable to neither attack nor defend, Han Yunfeng's face was heavy, feeling the sharp pain stinging his soul. He paled, and Lu Xie grinned as he changed his signs. The spiders drew nearer with every step, every second, and with them, Lu Xie's web closed around him. Everyone, including the audience, was at the edge of their seats for Han Yunfeng's fate. Third young master Han shouted, "Brother, just give up. You defeated 2 experts and are weary. It's no loss even if you concede. This isn't about reputation, but whether I can walk further on the path of cultivation." Han Yunfeng's eyelids shook, looking in Zhuo Fan's direction. His eyes flashed and roared as his aura exploded once more. "Brother!" His brothers cried out in worry. "What's he up to?" Wu Qingqiu was startled. Having a bad feeling, soul burst. Han Yunfeng made a sign. The trapped flying lion wailed in pain and then exploded. Streams of blue light shot in all directions like a tidal wave everywhere, and everything froze under a layer of blue crystals. Those spiders were about to explode again, but they froze immediately before shattering to dust. Lu Xie spat blood, looking at the light show slowly diminishing. Followed by a roar, a lion without wings burst out and came for him. The sudden impact caught Lu Xie off guard, knocking him flying, trailing blood behind him. This was not as light as before, with just his soul a little bit shaken up. This time his entire innards were crushed, and there was a high chance his body was ruined. However, the people did not care about him, not even demon scheming Sects members. In their eyes, there was a lion that had lost its wings, and despite its thinned state, it held its pride as it lay on the ground. Chapter 667, Man on the Path. Chapter 667, Man on the Path. Proofreader, Papatonks. Young Master Han, why did you do that? Watching the weak and frail lion lying on the ground since it struck Lu Xie, when Tao shook his head, "If I had known you were so obstinate, I wouldn't have said what I had. Seeing you fall in such a plight feels like I harmed you myself." Xie Tianshang's eyes shook as he stared at the scene for a long time before sighing. "I had spent my life only on martial arts, yet not even that can compare to Han Yunfeng's accomplishment. Soul burst, a desperate and last move to injure your opponent by exploding your soul. Unless it is the last resort, no one would ever use it, not when the recovery is painstakingly difficult." Even though Han Yunfeng had blown up his soul's wings, the damage to his soul is heavy and has also crippled his future. Putting the cart before the horse. Yinemo watched from above with a sullen look. He was angry, but not at the result, and more about his inability to fight. Didn't he challenge Zhuo Fan so he could go further down the path of cultivation? Now that his soul is crippled, what was the point? Wu Qingqiu nodded, lamenting at the pity. Only Yi Lin disdained, looking at the lion in admiration. "What do you ignorant youngsters know? The soul is important, but the damage isn't permanent, just somewhat annoying. If my guess is right, Double Dragon Manor, Zhuo Fan, and even me can all heal him. But the step he had taken today shall carry him for miles. The road of cultivation is fraught with obstacles. If one knows every effort was useless and stopped, that is as far as he went. But he has achieved his goal just because he chose to stake his life in this matter despite the obvious outcome. Even if he didn't get to fight with Zhuo Fan, his heart has grown to new bounds." The two squinted, watching Yi Lin in shock. Are soul wounds that meager anyone can heal? Double Dragon Manor, I get it, since they're the top in Western lands. But even you and Zhuo Fan are such miracle workers? Yi Lin noticed their gazes, but said nothing. Tap. As the dust cleared, Han Yunfeng dragged his even more weary body, looking with a pale face at the bloody Lu Xie on the ground. "I won. This is the third match." Lu Xie gnashed his teeth and found he could not get up. All that was left was the regret in his eyes. He would never have imagined Han Yunfeng would go to such extremes. "I just said I didn't want your life. So why did you have to go as far as wound your soul to win?" Lunatic, you're a true madman. At Lu Xie's unreconciled face, Han Yunfeng grinned. Then he turned to demon-scheming Sect, the next challenger. Brother, his two younger brothers shook, wanting to dissuade him. But seeing his determined look, they gave up. They knew that once their big brother was serious about something, there was no changing his mind. Demon-scheming Sect's team's hearts shook and looked from the frail lion to the weary Han Yunfeng. They held him in much more respect than before. Han Yunfeng would never achieve his goal, yet he fought regardless of the futility of his efforts. It was this determination that won them over. It wasn't just them. The entire audience was filled with respect. Gu Hu walked forward. It's my turn. Please instruct me. Good, begin. Han Yunfeng strained to keep his body upright as he shouted. His lion also struggled to stand, roaring toward Gu Hu. Despite how exhausted he was, his battle spirit never waned. Gu Hu said nothing as he walked to Han Yunfeng. Second young Master Han was tense, worried about his big brother's fate. Han Yunfeng fixed him in his eyes. He knew well that there was no way he could fight an ethereal stage expert in the state he was in, but what amazed him was that Gu Hu had no killing intent, as if he was only walking over. Han Yunfeng frowned and snapped. What's the meaning of this? Are you saying you can take me with just a finger? Gu Hu did not reply. As he reached him, under the watch of thousands of pairs of eyes, Gu Hu took Han Yunfeng's fist, struck his own chest with it 3 times, and then walked away. Startled, Han Yunfeng was stumped. The audience was baffled at this time. Kuei Lang laughed as he came over, copying Gu Hu by hitting his chest with Han Yunfeng's fist for 3 punches. My turn. Kuei Lang swaggered off. Hey, what's the meaning of this? Han Yunfeng asked. Yu Ling smirked and came over. What's so hard to understand? You just beat them, so the next one took their place. Aren't you challenging 6 ethereal stage experts? I'm the last one. Wait, your Han Yunfeng had a weird taste in his mouth. Stop whining. It's just your fist. Yu Ling got before him and was about to do the same, but then she realized something. She looked at her perky chest and blushed, then waved. Never mind. I'm the weakest of the 6. Since you beat the rest, I'll just admit defeat. Yu Ling left with a wave as she gracefully walked away. Han Yunfeng was left stumped, his heart filled with complex emotions. Gu Hu, what the hell are you guys playing at? Zhua Fan chuckled. Gu Hu shrugged. Steward Zhua, you saw it yourself. I took 3 fists of his and lost. Yep, me too. Kuei Lang bobbed his head. Zhua Fan shook his head. 3 fists to the chest? Are you guys swearing an oath of brotherhood here? Since you all admit defeat, it seems I'll have to step in. Zhua Fan stepped lightly, coming before Han Yunfeng. His eyes lit up with battle intent. I've waited so long for this. Ha, I always keep my word. Since you reached me, you have the right to hang out. Go ahead. Zhua Fan smiled. Han Yunfeng cupped his hands in glee and began weaving signs. Seeing their big brother shine again, the 2 younger brothers were filled with pride. They also sent grateful looks to Gu Hu and the others. Thank you, brothers. Just showing our respect is all. Since your brother wants to fight Steward Zhua with such passion, the least we can do is help out a little. Gu Hu's gang hit their chest in reply. However, just then, there was a light hum and a flash of light. The judge's aged voice came from outside. The 6 hours are up. Both sides cease fighting and come out. If you fight again, I'll consider it a grudge fight. What? Han Yunfeng shook and was unwilling. How can it be so fast? Then his eyes went dark and collapsed. Zhua Fan's right sprung into action, but then he moved it back and used the left one instead to hold him steady. Brother Han, we'll fight next time? Han Yunfeng shuddered and turned his white face to Zhua Fan. You'll still fight me? Of course, this is my promise. Since this time we can't, there's always next time. Zhua Fan spoke with determination. Han Yunfeng's perked into a smile and his eyes closed. He was out cold. His soul, the lion, also vanished back into his body holding Han Yunfeng's body. Zhua Fan was the first to go through the light. The 2 sects teams exchanged glances and followed after. Only Lu Xie, in his heavily wounded state, had to be carried out by Qi Changlong. Whoosh! The teams were back in the arena and were welcomed by a resounding round of applauses. Unlike the first challenge against Heaven Trailing Sect, the Demon Scheming Sect still held their absolute advantage, but they had a complete attitude change. Instead of abusing their opponent, they showed respect. Bar a particular someone, of course. This led to everyone having a whole new respect for demon scheming sect after looking at both sects. The judge coughed for silence and was about to announce the results when Zhuo Fan stepped forward. Elder, 10 people went into Sumeru Dimension, and 10 have returned. Both sides have one seriously injured member. It should be a draw. Well, the judge was taken aback and nodded. Since you are willing to step back, I will help you. This challenge is a draw. This statement left the crowd in shock. All looking at Zhuo Fan reason dictated that demon scheming sect held the ultimate advantage and was the real winner. But Zhuo Fan was willing to give up victory and give his opponent the greatest respect in an instant. The people were in awe of Zhuo Fan's style, and the Han brothers appreciated him too. Exalted He ran up above, nodded. The brat is walking the path, a true rarity. Chapter 668, Hand in the Shadow. Chapter 668, Hand in the Shadow. Proofreader, Papatonks. With dusk approaching, the judge declared today's fight over. The middle 3 sects challenge round had been going on for a long time, with each stage taking 6 hours each. The next challenge stage shall be held tomorrow. The judge ended with a bitter look in Zhuo Fan's direction as if to say, "It's all your fault, you punk, for wasting our time." A whole day was wasted with just 6 single matches and 1 team battle in this yet unfinished middle 3 sects challenge round. Now you need 2 days for just 3 rounds? Why do you take your sweet time with it every time you're involved? First was the lower 3 sects round, now the middle 3 sects challenge round. Do you enjoy playing that much? Can't you go on a bit faster so I can lay to rest these weary bones a bit earlier? Zhuo Fan chuckled as if he knew what he was thinking. But then he turned his head away and rolled his eyes like it was not his problem. The judge sighed and shook his head. Just how on earth did such an obnoxious freak come from the tiny demon scheming sect, a lower 3 sect? After everyone dispersed, Zhuo Fan handed Han Yunfeng over to Demon Soul Sect with the promise that he would also heal his injuries before leaving the Demon Soul Sect. Still doubted that such a heavy injury could even be healed. The guy isn't trying to dupe us, is he? Then again, tricking them wouldn't earn him anything. Their elder brother's wound was self-inflicted as he insisted on going on with the challenge. The Double Dragon Gathering used to be a cruel and bloody event. The fact they didn't wipe us out is already fortunate. What more could we ask? Therefore, Demon Soul Sect's team looked at the frail Han Yunfeng, thinking of his future bumpy path ahead of him, and sighed, the best talent in our sect, ruined just like that. Middle 3 sects, middle 3 sects. Meanwhile, Fiendyang took his team back, shouting all the time. Filled with joy and bliss from the achievement, Fiendyang then felt like crying. Curses, it was freaking hard too. Thinking back on our team in the last Double Dragon Gathering, of the 10 of us, only 4 returned home. I never thought this time our disciples would come back in one piece, and even earn us a middle 3 sect position. It feels like I'm still dreaming. I'm so damn happy. Humph, how can it ever compare to now? Fiendine sneered. Double Dragon Gathering requires a team of 10 to participate. Back then, most of those candidates were just replacements for the elders, and venerables stuck their candidates in to earn them some merits. They weren't worth a damn on the stage. Unlike this time, where we only had 10, each is an elite by himself. Especially Zhuo Fan, who is worth 100. Thinking of the team battle, he alone could finish them all off. Ha! Slapping Zhuo Fan's shoulder hard, Fiendine laughed, but Zhuo Fan kept frowning and cursing on the inside. Hey, watch the hand. My right's still healing. Though he didn't say it, putting on a twitching smile and nodding. Qingqiu praised as well. Here, on this Double Dragon Gathering, Zhuo Fan had earned the biggest credit. Without him, the disciples wouldn't have the strength to even fight. They wouldn't have what it takes to raise our sect's name. We even have the middle 3 sects and superior 3 sects coming to watch us. So when we return, the first thing we do is to reward Zhuo Fan. He is the future pillar of our demon scheming sect. Ha ha ha. You're talking nonsense. Isn't it obvious by now? Fiendyang sneered. Our position in the middle 3 sects is secured, and we even challenged 2 middle 3 sections. Even if it's just team battles, it will certainly not drag us back when it comes to the final score. Speaking of drag, I'm still annoyed that damn Mystical Heaven sect played us. All right, it's all in the past now. Our objective is how to keep challenging. Fiendine interrupted him. Fiendyang gave a heavy nod, turning serious. The previous challenges were nothing to speak of, just small fries, while the next 4 sects are the real deal. Especially the top of middle 3 sects, the Sword God sect. Their strength is very close to a superior 3 sects. We must tread carefully, venerable sirs, sorry to interrupt. However, just as they were getting to the crux of it, a faint voice broke their focus. Before we discuss the fighting tomorrow, could you perhaps heal me first? I feel my body is failing me. Whoosh! Startled, the fiends turned around and saw Lu Xie's weary look, lying on the ground with a miserable face like he was on his deathbed. Fiend Yang's face twitched as he cursed. You have the cheek to ask for help? What kind of brain do you have crammed in there to do what you did? You went as far as pushing the hard-headed Han Yunfeng to risk his life. Just look at Kuei Lang and the others. They know a hero when they see one. Their actions have spurred the public's respect for us and given Demon Scheming Sect a new look. While all you managed to do is get both of you on the deathbed, no one spares a look to you. You were seriously asking for it. Let me tell you, even if you did manage to beat him, it wouldn't have been of any worth. You'd only be reviled. Thanks to Zhuo Fan's final intervention, he patched up your mess. By the way, why would you even go so hard in blocking him anyway? Did you think he could have beaten Zhuo Fan? It's fine. He just couldn't help it and got his punishment. Fiendyang still wanted to go on, but Zhuo Fan stopped him with a smile. Kuei Lang and the other are the same as Han Yunfeng. They have potential, which resonated with him, unlike the petty Lu Xie, who squabbles over petty affairs and can never understand such bravery. Just leave him be. At the end of it all, he's one of ours and shouldn't bother him. Fiendyang huffed and shook his head. Zhuo Fan, I'm not talking about his character, but his brains. Originally, the demonic path wasn't popular, but now that we're a middle 3 sect, we may even get an entire empire for ourselves. The Double Dragon Gathering is the best chance to show off our mettle. But with his behavior, won't he scare off our potential funders? We may be a demonic sect, but we still have principles, unlike those rogue demonic cultivators. Here. We collect protection fees while those rogues only know to rob homes. Ha ha ha, Zhuo Fan chuckled. Lu Xie didn't like what he heard. Then back with Heaven Trailing Sect, Steward Zhuo asking us to toy with them isn't just as vile. For God's sake, here I am, taking your side, and you just had to make me look bad? He emphasized it with 2 kicks and grumbling. I did it on purpose. Everything was for power and grace. Since we wanted people to see us have virtues, we had to also show them we're no pushovers. This will help future deals go much easier in our favor. It's called preemptive strike. Got it? Hear that? Steward Zhuo is a brilliant man, not something a pig-headed guy like you could ever measure up to. You'll only make a fool of yourself. Fiendyang cursed at the side, then turned to Zhuo Fan. Sigh, we better teach this kid well, or who knows what trouble he might stir. No worries, I'll first heal him then teach him. Zhuo Fan snickered as he dragged Lu Xie into his room. The rest looked on and chuckled. Bam! In the room, Zhuo Fan threw Lu Xie on the bed, closed the door shut, then his face fell. Lu Xie, what was that just now? Were you about to spill the beans about Han Yunfeng as well? Steward Zhuo, I just don't understand why you suddenly sent me a message to stall Han Yunfeng as much as I could. Why then do you now? Lu Xie spoke fearfully. Zhuo Fan squinted and held his right hand. You did well when you stalled him, but if you dare say any word of this, I'd never. Lu Xie waved frantically. You'd better. Now stop asking questions. Zhuo Fan huffed and presented a vial in a flash of light. He threw it over. Take this. Don't come out in 3 days. You'll be back in shape. You don't have to join tomorrow's challenge. Just heal up. Zhuo Fan then walked out and slammed the door closed behind him. Lu Xie bobbed his head. But when Zhuo Fan was gone, he gnashed his teeth. He stared at the door with bitter resentment. Damn you, Zhuo Fan. You're the one working from the shadows, and while I take the fall, you take the glory. You get the merit, and I get the can. Just you wait. This is far from over. Lu Xie turned to the vial Zhuo Fan threw, and opened it after a moment of thought. This is just the interest of what you owe me. Zhuo Fan just left Lu Xie's room and then looked around. He returned to his room and took off his shirt. Looking at his right hand, Still bleeding, he gritted his teeth and frowned. Damn that fiendine. He's like a bull. But what's with this healing rate? Just a little touch, and it's already opened up again. It's all thanks to Lucie's stalling, or my wound would have been exposed the minute I fought. Squinting, Shuafan snickered to himself like a little weasel after his plan worked perfectly. Chapter 669, Danqing Shen's Purpose. Chapter 669, Danqing Shen's Purpose. Proofreader, Papatonks. Haha, I see. I was wondering why you were so odd before. When you switched to using your left instead of your right, it turned out it was wounded. A sudden old chuckle pierced Shuafan's ears, making him shiver. He swished a shocked face around, but only found an old drunkard. It looked as if he had been in Shuafan's room from the start, taking his sweet time gulping down wine and looking at him with a penetrative sneer. His brow shook, and Shuafan cried, "Senior, how did you get in? What, ain't I welcome?" Danqing Shen's face looked a little savage as he said, "I've told you already, there's nowhere on these lands I cannot go. No one can stop me." Ugh. Shuafan's face stiffened, and he let out a strained laugh. "Haha, yeah. You do me a great honor seeing me, Senior. You light my home with your presence. How could little old me ever refuse you? It's just that Senior's sudden appearance caught me by surprise. TCH, quite slick, I see. Who'll ever believe your smooth talk?" Danqing Shen sneered, then his cruel eyes snapped on the bleeding right hand. "You must be most annoyed this old man found out your secret." Speechless for a moment, Shuafan's eyes spun all over the place, but then he chuckled as he strained to deny it. "Senior, how can you say that? How could a little old and average radiant stage disciple ever hide something from so many experts? Senior must be joking. Ha ha ha." Even with the forced laughter, Shuafan made sure to hide his wounded right back in his clothes. "Spare me your lies." Danqing Shen's face went cold, his piercing eyes staring right at him as he questioned, "Boy, tell the truth. Who gave you that wound?" Flicking his eyes around, Shuafan waved him off. "Isn't it obvious? Having fought so many times, injuries are common. Sir also knows I am a tough man, not going to let a flesh wound bother me, so I endured it. Since Sir has found me out, then I am most grateful for your concern. Cut the crap. Don't you play dumb with me. I'm not buying it." Danqing Shen's face twitched and snorted. "I've seen your recent fights, and you think I don't know who you've been fighting? They couldn't even scratch you, let alone hurt you. Moreover, that wound is a through and through, clearly made by sword energy. Talk. Where did you run off to?" Heart tensing, Shuafan gave the old man a look. He clearly knew everything despite questioning him, so all he could do was admit it. "Senior, you're so astute, and I can't hide anything. I was curious, explored someplace, and got this little scratch for my troubles." "Boy, you sure are deceitful. Using your teammates that were toying with heaven-trailing sect, you sneaked away to check out the sacred mine. Not even the exalted double dragons figured you out. Boy, your plan was brilliant." "Haha, you're too kind, Senior. Did it not fail to pull the wool over Senior's brilliant eyes?" Shuafan grinned at Danqing Shen, flattering him whenever he could the way he saw it. Since Danqing Shen had left Double Dragon Manor ages ago, he came to him after finding him out. It was a clear sign the old man wanted to negotiate something, so Shuafan was working to lighten the mood and see what he wanted. Sparing him a glance, Danqing Shen sneered, "Easy on the flattery, boy. I needed one look and knew something was off about the show you pulled on heaven-trailing sect. Why did each disciple go after their prey and then return to that valley? All except you. Why were you so late for the show? Then there was the fight with Demon Soul sect. It was clear from your demeanor that there was something with your right hand, though just a hunch. Now that I see it myself, it all became clear. You got guts, boy. The sacred mine is Double Dragon Manor's territory, yet you dare go in? Talk. Who sent you? What is their purpose?" Danqing Shen barked. Shuafan shrugged, muttering for a bit, "Senior, you're only fussing over trifles. No one sent me. I didn't even know there'd be a sacred mine in that place. I just felt that spiritual energy was incredibly thick when I entered. So curiosity got the best of me, and I want to check it out. I never thought it would lead to such a careless mistake and got wounded." "Careless, you say?" Who are you trying to fool? Danqing Shen mocked. The sacred mines aren't important just for Double Dragon Manor, but the entire Western lands. While the mine's interference prevented an array from being set up, thousands of monitoring arrays existed before it. There's no way you could have bypassed them without inside help. And not just you. Even I, a former Double Dragon Manor disciple, have no idea where they've changed those monitoring arrays' positions. And just touching one of them will instantly get the two old coots on you. It may look like light protection when in fact, it's at the highest. It's like casting thousands of eyes on that place, taking in your every movement. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, so the monitoring arrays were placed by the Exalted in person. He had just skirted the two old guys' traps under their noses. Zhuo Fan sighed. That was close. How fortunate I'm an array master and a good one enough not to run into any of them. Glancing over, Danqing Shen resumed the inquiry. Talk? Why did you come here? Who's your contact in the Double Dragon Manor? Senior, I won't lie to you. I was just curious and took a look. That's all. Zhuo Fan chuckled. As for those monitoring arrays, I just had to read the terrain and energy flow to find them out. I always stepped in their blind spot, going in and out without a sign. I had no devious ploy at all. Danqing Shen's heart shook, looking at Zhuo Fan in shock and doubt. Those were set up by the Exalted themselves and hidden very well. Yet you saw them at a glance? Senior, my low cultivation might not show it, but I'm a 10th grade array master. Also, this is just what I can do now. If we discuss insights and theories in arrays, my accomplishments are way higher. Rolling his eyes, Zhuo Fan's face was solemn. I was a little nervous about when the two Exalted might find me in the short time I had, or I could have just broken them, you know? Danqing Shen looked at him, filled with skepticism. He did not believe him at first. The two Exalted set them up themselves and you, a snot-nosed brat, up and said you could break them? Even talent has limits. However, Zhuo Fan's confidence was too genuine to write it off as acting. Seeing hesitation play on his face, Zhuo Fan broke his thoughts with a smile. Senior, what do you need of me? How can I be of help? Boy, you've been caught messing around. Now you want to drag me into it too? Ha ha ha, Senior. You can't say that when it's you who came here for something. Now you approached me with the intent to test my limits, so how can it be all my fault? Zhuo Fan chuckled and shook his head. Danqing Shen's eyes flashed, praising his sharp mind, but his voice was still the same. Boy, I only came to check something and not for anything else. Stop your wild guessing. Oh, Senior, you're really ha-ha. Can't you be a little frank with me? Zhuo Fan shook his head, annoyed. Senior, you're not part of Double Dragon Manor. Since you found my secret trip to the sacred mine, you had no reason to come and question me. Yet you came nevertheless. For you to keep asking me about my contact only means you have two purposes. One, you still care about Double Dragon Manor and want to protect it by removing the danger, though that could have been easily done by dropping a hint about my actions. That leaves the second purpose for yourself, to eavesdrop. I think this one has a higher probability. Because that is your purpose, you need an insider who knows the ins and out of the current Double Dragon Manor. Didn't you say it yourself that you've been gone for ages? Eyeing Zhuo Fan, Danqing Shen's beard shook. He chuckled and shook his head. You're one little freak. You know that? You saw through me down to the last detail. No wonder in the fight with Demon Soul Sect, you let Lu Xie, who has been at odds with you, step in instead of others who would have listened just the same. Because he will do a better job. Ha ha ha, when using others, one needs to consider every aspect. Lu Xie is petty and untrustworthy, though sometimes, for some things, only petty people can do them. Zhuo Fan's eyes glinted and snickered. Senior, what do you need of me? Please tell me. Danqing Shen's eyes shook, and he finally sighed. I want the sword that injured you. Chapter 670, Twin Soul. Chapter 670, Twin Soul. Proofreader, Papatonks. What? Zhuo Fan's eyes widened as he cried. Sacred weapon? His heart tensed, and his brow furrowed. He would never have thought Danqing Shen's return to Double Dragon Manor was for the sacred weapon worse. Now that the said sacred weapon was now with him, wouldn't Telling get himself killed and robbed? No, he can't know about this at all costs. Whatever I do, I must never allow him to suspect I have it. But when he reaches the cave, he'll know I have it when it's not there. How am I going to hide the truth? God damn it. What the hell is a top expert even doing setting his sights on a sacred weapon? It's a rarity even for me, so why should I just give it up? Seeing Zhuo Fan's heavy look, Danqing Shen was suspicious. What did you just say? Sacred weapon? Who told you that? When I entered the cave, I saw a very dangerous longsword with sharp spirituality that actually moved by its own will. It almost took my little life. There's no way it's the same as spiritual weapons, so in a moment of inspiration, called it a sacred weapon. Ha ha ha, Zhuo Fan lied through his teeth as he started blabbing. Danqing Shen nodded like it was natural. I see. It's something you named it yourself. I actually thought you knew Atlas Sword's history. Atlas Sword? Zhuo Fan gasped. Danqing Shen nodded. Yes, the Atlas Sword. The continent's 5 regions all have a sacred mine. In those sacred mines, over eons, nature itself forged a divine sword to guard them. The Western lands is this Atlas Sword, the one I want to obtain, but having left the Western lands long ago, I had lost my right to get it through normal means. All I can do is take it by force. Danqing Shen sighed and shook his head. That's why I hope I can get the map showing me the way to the sacred mine and obtain Atlas Sword. So that's why. Zhuo Fan gave an understanding nod, though his frown deepened. But when I saw Atlas Sword, it was savage. It almost took my life, and I barely escaped. Is Sir that sure that you can subdue it? Of course. Danqing Shen beamed in pride. Atlas Sword is a sacred weapon of this world, incomparable to every other sword out there. Even someone at my level would have a very hard time subduing it. It also cannot leave the sacred mine, which makes it even harder. But I grew up training with it while at Double Dragon Manor. Our will reflect on each other's thoughts to the point we are one. I once had the chance to have it. With enough sacred stones in my ring, the Atlas Sword would simply follow me instead. But then you know what happened. In my rage, I destroyed 10 sects, and the Exalted sealed that area, forcing me to leave. Otherwise, I would have long since taken the sacred sword and become almighty through all the lands. Zhuo Fan nodded, even as he was cooking a plan in his mind on how to dissuade the drunkard. So he said, since you didn't want it last time, why would you want it now? That's none of your business. Put in a difficult situation, Danqing Shen grumbled and stared at Zhuo Fan with conviction. Boy, didn't you say you saw the way through the monitoring arrays? I don't care if it's the truth or not. I just want you to draw me a safe path, and I'll make it worth your while. Well, Zhuo Fan was put on the spot, not knowing what to do. If he did that, it would be the same as sealing his fate. He could practically see Danqing Shen reaching the cave only to see it empty of no sacred stones and no sacred weapon. After a brief moment of shock, he'd go berserk. Won't he kill me in his rage? Zhuo Fan felt like he was handing out the noose to string himself up. Senior, have you ever thought the sword might accept someone else before you? That's not possible. Didn't I tell you? The sword has a will and won't just follow anyone. Unless... What? Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up with hope. Danqing Shen's mood darkened. Unless the Exalted kept the sword distracted. Atlas Sword has been under the Exalted's care, and it would definitely listen. If they wanted to move it, it would obey. Oh, in other words, you're not the sword's true love. Zhuo Fan bobbed his head and sighed inside. I can rest easy knowing there's a convenient scapegoat around. Therefore, he took out a blank jade slip, imprinted it with the right path, and then presented it to Danqing Shen. At this moment, they were in this together. With no one able to sell out the other, Danqing Shen took it and laughed. Great. Now I can do it. Ha ha, thank you, boy. It's no trouble. Senior is a straightforward person, and I'm sure helping Senior will definitely not go unnoticed. Ha ha, Zhuo Fan waved him off with an innocent face. Even when his words had obvious implications, Danqing Shen's face twitched. I just knew that when I told you my reason, you'd try haggling with me. Spill it. What do you want? I'll do all I can to achieve it. Senior, how can you say that? I'm not petty. A mere map is nothing. Zhuo Fan faked modesty. Danqing Shen rolled his eyes and mocked. Save it. With your keen mind, I could tell you're not one to lose out on anything. Now I am owing you a favor, and who knows what you'll do that'll make me have a hard time. No, I have to repay it today. Oh, then what does Sir think it's an appropriate reward that can compare with a sacred weapon? Zhuo Fan grinned. His smile twisted, but he never asked for anything, letting him come up with the price. This is all appealing to one's conscience. Moreover, there's no way a big shot like you would be stingy with a junior. Glaring at Zhuo Fan, Danqing Shen shook his head. Boy, you're truly sharp, to make me say it so that you won't lose out at all. An old man like me can't dupe a kid, either. I planned on giving you a cultivation method or martial arts, but never mind. Since you said it has to match the worth of the sword, a mere cultivation method will look like an insult. True, so very true, Zhuo Fan bobbed his head. His grin ever present, he didn't care about any manuals. What could the mortal domain ever come up with that was worthy of his attention? What he wanted was a true expert's promise. Now that was the true reward. Danqing Shen pondered for a bit, then clapped. Fine then. I'll make this an exception and give you a secret art I created personally. This is sure to be enough. Danqing Shen's hand flashed, and a green jade slip rested in his palm. Zhuo Fan took it and squinted once he read, Twin Soul Art? Right, that's the one. Danqing Shen nodded, smiling. Boy, you are so much like me back in the day, just as talented and proud. Senior, you call this a reward? Of a sort, yet also yes. Because we all form our souls in the radiant stage. Danqing Shen's eyes flashed, and he gave a vague grin. Startled, Zhuo Fan looked lost. Who'd have thought he is another one with ethereal stage power in the radiant stage? Zhuo Fan knew that the reason for the mighty power he had right now was due to the azure flame, while Danqing Shen just relied on himself to reach it. Now that was a true genius. Danqing Shen beamed. Boy, did you really think you're the only genius? My talent wasn't any less than yours in those days. How else do you think I surpassed my two masters and earned the title of the strongest in Western lands? All my success is attributed to having twin souls. Danqing Shen extended two fingers, and they started glowing azure before touching Zhuo Fan's forehead in a blink. Zhuo Fan's vision changed, appearing in a golden world. There, a proud sword stood stalwart with a huge prismatic dragon winding around it, bearing its fangs and claws. It was none other than a heaven dragon soul whoosh. Zhuo Fan was back to reality. Senior. That's... Zhuo Fan's eyes widened in shock. Danqing Shen smiled in pride. See that? Those are my twin souls. One is the sword soul, and the other is the heaven dragon soul. They both exist at the same time, making my soul many times stronger than anyone else's. This is why I have become the best in Western lands. The next one to have it, boy, will be you. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan shook, his face overwhelmed by what he saw and heard. Twin souls had never appeared even in the sacred domain since two souls meant they had to fight for supremacy. However, those two souls were peacefully coexisting in the same place. What's going on? Zhuo Fan's eyes glinted as they rested on the jade slip. So even the mortal domain has some nifty stuff. Chapter 671. 3 Conditions. Chapter 671. 3 Conditions. Proofreader. Papatonks. The formation of the soul usually only happens once, in the ethereal stage, the culmination of one's spirit. Seeing Zhuo Fan staring intently at the jade slip, Danqing Shen nodded and explained. However, Zhuo Fan, we are different. We've reached the culmination in the radiant stage and formed our souls. This way, we can form our soul once again. Zhuo Fan turned solemn, listening to his every word. Danqing Shen's eyes were hard as he warned. But this chance has some conditions. One of them is that the second soul forming has to be far stronger than the first, or the first soul would interfere and would make it harder. That's easy since it's obvious. Since I formed my soul in the radiant stage, my spirit would be stronger when I reached the ethereal stage. Zhuo Fan spoke like it was obvious. Danqing Shen smiled and shook his head. Ha ha ha, to others, that might be the case, but it will pose a challenge for you. Why do you say that? Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow in doubt. Danqing Shen's eyes shone as he continued. This is related to the second condition of the twin soul. No mountain is higher. Since the second soul has to expend your spirit, it must be stronger than the first soul so that it can suppress it and form. Otherwise, it's a failure. That I see. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, already understanding what he was saying. Heaven Dragon Soul was world energy taking form, one of the best a soul could ever become. So what could possibly be stronger than a Heaven Dragon Soul? Danqing saw through his worry and sighed. Alas, you did not meet me earlier. Or, having seen how alike we are, I would have warned you when forming your first soul. Just like how I formed the Sword Soul first, then the Heaven Dragon Soul to suppress it and accomplish the Twin Soul art. Senior, that's just hindsight. I refuse to believe that if you were presented with the chance to form the Heaven Dragon Soul the first time, you would first wait for the Sword Soul. I bet you didn't even know Twin Soul was possible. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes. Danqing Shen's heart jerked, but he nodded. True. When I formed the Sword Soul, I had no chance of forming the Heaven Dragon Soul first. However, it was this that gave me insight on how to achieve the Twin Soul of today. What if I form a second Heaven Dragon Soul? Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up since the second soul had a hard time surpassing the first. Making them equal was better. I'll just have to scour the world for some 10 more Earth Dragon Souls. How hard could it be? However, Danqing Shen shook his head. Boy, you know full well that a mountain ain't big enough for 2 tigers. If a man formed a twin soul of the same type, it would be a true toil. That is why a person can't have 2 beast souls. If you want them to coexist, they have to be different. When you try to form another Heaven Dragon Soul, your first one won't just sit still. It will fight for its turf, and will make sure you fail. Which takes us to the third condition, harmony. Take your room, for instance. You'd be annoyed if someone waltzed in yet wouldn't even bat an eye when an ant slipped in. Why is that? Because you don't see it as a threat to your interests. It is like you consider this room yours, and the ant will also see it as their nest. You live in harmony despite sharing the same room. I see. In other words, the Heaven Dragon Soul sees your Sword Soul as nothing more than a prop. Heaven Dragon Soul is a reptile at the core, so the two have no conflict of interests, resulting in harmony. Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up. Danqing Shen nodded. That's exactly it, child. While the spirit is unique, the soul is a twin one, resting within it in harmony. As for how to achieve this, it's all written down in that art. Do your best, and read it carefully. This is as far as I'm going to help you. Ha ha ha. But senior, while I can understand all the other stuff, how am I going to form a soul stronger than the Heaven Dragon Soul? Please enlighten me, senior. Zhuo Fan pondered for a moment, then cupped his hands. Danqing Shen shook his head. I have no solution either. It's all down to luck. Ha ha. Danqing Shen turned around and was gone. He ran away. In any case, I returned the favor and freed myself of this tie. Your success will now solely rest on your shoulders. I'm powerless anyway. Ha ha ha. Wait, senior. Zhuo Fan hastily said, but he no longer sensed the old man around. Damn you, old coot, and your wretched favor. You gave me some twin soul art and got me intrigued, only to leave me high and dry when it's the hardest. And what now? I know this strange art is nearly impossible to train in, but now I'm so piqued I can't let it go. Damn ungrateful old geezer. You clearly used it to lure me. How am I supposed to form a soul stronger than that dragon soul? Your secret special art is useless to me. But then Zhuo Fan thought differently. Danqing Shen wants the sacred weapon that I got before him. The map I drew for him will just lead him to nothing. So this isn't a favor, but a practical joke. So he no longer felt cheated. It's up to me to make the most of this. What matters is that I got away scot-free. There's no point in worrying over it any longer. And so, Zhuo Fan's hand flashed, and Blood Infant came out of his body and turned into that demonic sword he was now holding. Looking at the pommel, he did find the word Atlas engraved on it. Oh, Atlas Sword. I was in such a rush then that I had no time to find out your name. Now I see it really is what that old guy wants. I just hope he never comes back to me to get it, or I'm finished. Zhuo Fan traced the blade as he said, however. Just then, the old voice of Danqing Shen sounded again. By the way, boy, I don't think you'll ever get to hide your wound in battle. If the 2 exalted find out, you'll be in trouble. Senior, you're back? Startled, Zhuo Fan hurriedly stuck the sword in his gut. Running his body through it, making him grimace as blood seeped. The longsword snickered and turned into blood infant before hiding in his body, glaring at his gut. Zhuo Fan crunched his teeth. Is this guy blind? The old man is back, and yet it still delayed hiding. What if he found out? Fortunately, the wound this time was just skin deep, so Zhuo Fan ignored his self-injury and replied, "Thank you for your concern, Senior, but I have a brilliant plan." "Oh, that's good. But just in case misfortune takes you, you had better not drag me in as well and just say what happened to you. Or else." Danqing Shen smiled coldly and sighed. "What a shame you got so many eyes on you. I would have nipped this trouble from the start just to keep a clear conscience, but it will only have the opposite effect right now." Zhuo Fan's cheek twitched, and he rolled his eyes at the old guy's whining. This guy takes matters into his own hands. Thank God I'm a shower, and everyone's now interested in me. He won't touch me, or it'll make things worse. Otherwise, if nobody discovered his secret, he'd be wiped off the face of this world. Since the outside of his room was quiet, he figured the old guy had left. Zhuo Fan eased a breath and looked at the jade slip in his hand. Humph, might as well hang on to it just in case. I'll know more after I inspect it thoroughly. Zhuo Fan started reading the jade slip carefully. His face shook as he delved deeper. The more he read, the more excited he got. Danqing Shen is a true genius to come up with such a mystical art. Such a shame he's from mortal domain and had a poor start. If he were from a sacred domain, he might reach saint level. On the morrow, the arena was packed in minutes. All were pushing and rushing to get the best seat, excited for what would follow. After all, this battle had great significance. That of the greatest underdog that ever lived fighting the strongest middle three sect, Sword God Sect. Sword God Sect was also recognized as one to be just under a superior 3 sect. In other words, if Demon Scheming Sect won this challenge, they would threaten the positions of the superior 3 sections, be it the national delegates or the other sect teams. All were here to watch history being made. The chances were high that Western land's status quo and sphere of interests would shift after this fight. One more reason why they should pay close attention. Qingqiu, the superior 3 sects are here as well. Look at how serious they are. They must feel threatened. Shui Ruohua pointed at a few sects as she spoke in shock. Tell me, do you really think Demon Scheming Sect threatens the superior 3 sects that had been unchanged for thousands of years? Chu Qingqiu had a radiant smile. When he steps in, no one's position is ever safe. I've seen it happen so many times it has become a common occurrence. The bigger and stronger they are, the more likely they are to be thrown down from their throne by him. It's only natural to feel nervous. Haha. Chapter 672, Gentle Sword. Chapter 672, Gentle Sword. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sister Qingqiu, you believe in him that much? The next 4 sects are in an entirely different league than the ones before. Danner fluttered her big eyes. Chu Qingqiu's expression never changed. He is a miracle worker. If there's anything he wants to do, then nothing is impossible. I do not doubt it. The rest's hearts chilled looking at her. Only Xin Xiaoyu's face turned heavy and morose. Whoosh. The judge was back in the center of the stage. He bowed before the exalted double dragons sitting in the highest spots and then shouted, "Disciples of Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect, enter." As his words fell, the 2 groups walked in. Sword God Sect was led by Wen Tao, though he seemed to have lost his casual nature, now sporting a grave and serious look. Demon Scheming Sect was led by Zhuo Fan, of course, only this time they were just 9, bearing Lu Xie. It was clear that the guy got the worst wounds yesterday and could not fight with the 2 sides' disciples in the arena. The judge looked from one to another, then spoke to Zhuo Fan. Demon Scheming Sect has only 9 participants and is at a disadvantage. Do you have a replacement? Thank you for your concern, Elder. Demon Scheming Sect cares about quality and not quantity. We will fight even if we are missing one man. Zhuo Fan cupped his hands, striking a heroic figure and earning the respect and admiration of the crowd. The judge nodded and turned to Wen Tao for his response. Wen Tao simply smiled and cupped his hands to him and the Demon Scheming Sect. My Sword God Sect is not one to take advantage of one's moment of weakness, but Demon Scheming Sect is just so strong that we have to take it seriously. Even if it had only 1 person remaining, Brother Zhuo, we'd still fight him. All 10 of us as determined as ever. That's why, Ha ha ha, Brother Zhua, please show leniency. Brother One is too polite. Zhua Fan cupped his hands as well, his eyes flashing. Wen Tao sure is slick and charismatic. He is devoid of the arrogance that plagues those with status, bereft of a loser's cowardice. Instead, he shows a humble and steadfast attitude, his kindness hiding a ruthless nature. He does not lose his pride and does not flaunt it either. While this won't make him outstanding, he does garner respect with his amiable nature. Just like they say, the gentle sword is sharp and smooth. Since both sides agree, we will begin the match. The judge flicked his hand and shouted, "Open the dimension!" The last battle of the middle three sects challenge stage, between Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect, begins. Whoosh! Those two elders once again walked on stage and opened a path to the valley when Tao smiled and offered kindly, "Brother Zhua, after you." "Oh no, Brother One, after you." Zhua Fan returned his gesture, and the two sides vanished in a white flash. The audience was in awe. The Demon Scheming Sect isn't savage to everyone who walks their way. At the very least, towards the Demon Soul Sect and the Sword God Sect, one demonic and the other righteous, they look quite friendly. That meant Heaven Trailing Sect's brutal fate wasn't without reason. You're just too cocky. Why would the other give you any respect if you start threatening another? Soon, the people came to an understanding of the sect's demeanor. Demon Soul Sect was one to value duty and gratitude. Sword God Sect stood on ceremony, and Demon Scheming Sect responded with the same coin depending on their adversary. As for Heaven Trailing Sect, the eyes of the crowd turned to their location to see just two people. Ren Tsong, among them, looked bitter and stared at Zhua Fan with all the hatred he could muster. This attitude earned the people's contempt. Showing off gets you killed off, idiot. Suddenly, the hearts of the people had made their choice. If the status of the 9 sects shifted in this competition, some strong empires would take the initiative to invite certain sects among them. The benefits, of course, would be greater for both sides. While Demon Scheming Sect's cruel act on the Heaven Trailing Sect had earned their disgust, the next two matches showed how heroic they were, changing the public's view. As for the disgust, it was all shifted to Heaven Trailing Sect. They were sure of it now that they deserved what they got. Who told you to be rampant? A petty and unceasingly pedantic sect will never have enough. In this manner, the funders wrote Heaven Trailing Sect as the worst sect to have. Unless they had absolutely no choice in the matter, they'd never accept it. Otherwise, they would shoot down any attempts this sect had to come to their lands, as if he could sense everyone's despise and disgust. Ren Tsong glared at them, and they balked in fear. Then Ren Tsong turned back to hating Zhua Fan with gnashed teeth. Wasn't he the victim here? How did he earn public ire after all he had been through? It made no sense. Elder Qi grumbled, his face heavy. However, just then, a faint voice reached their ears. "Elder Qi, young Master Run, my master would like to send a message to sect leader Run. Would you care to talk?" "Who are you?" The two turned around and saw someone covered in all black, shaking and instilling a feeling of weakness. As if a light breeze could topple him, his head hung low, blocking his face. When he rose his head, his pale face was there for all to see, shocking the two to the core. "Lucia, what do you want?" Meanwhile, Zhua Fan's team had returned to the valley. Just like last time, he jumped back and said to Wen Tao, "Like I said, who could get on my level?" Before he finished, when Tao's teasing came, "I knew you'd do this, so I came up with the perfect way to deal with your 8 bodyguards." 8? Zhua Fan raised an eyebrow and mocked. "You're an ethereal stage expert, and I have 6 that can match you. Though one is down with wounds, 5 is still enough. So where did you come up with 8? Besides, all 10 of you are ethereal stage experts. You could easily handle them." "Haha, that just won't do. Since Brothers was set up this trial, I must brave it myself. Won't I earn Brothers was contempt by using my junior brothers to resolve problems?" When Tao smiled, the other 9 Sword God Sect disciples, Xie Tianshang included, nodded. They stepped back and looked solemn, determined not to get involved. Qi Changlong squinted and grew angry. "Wen Tao, are you saying you can take us 8 together by yourself? Humph, talk about arrogance. You might be in the 4th layer, but we have 2 in the 3rd layer, 1 in the 2nd layer, 2 in the 1st layer, and 5 ethereal stage experts. Not even you can beat us." "That remains to be seen. Wen Tao sneered, "Sometimes, a difference in cultivation does not reflect a difference in strength. Brother Zhua is the perfect example of this, always able to overcome the gap in the most overwhelming fashion. While we are just one layer apart, our strengths are another matter altogether. Ha ha ha." Wen Tao chuckled and shot forth, "Brother Zhua, you'll be fighting soon enough. This is just a warm-up. In mere moments I'll deal with these guys, who won't be able to do anything." "What nerve! You take us for nothing, is that it? Think you will reach Steward Zhua that fast?" Qi Changlong huffed and made a sign. In an instant, a seal 100 meters high appeared overhead and slammed down on Wen Tao. Wen Tao couldn't care less, leisurely pointing 2 fingers ahead. Whoosh! A sword wave clashed with the huge seal, sending it flying. It then disappeared midway. Having returned to Qi Changlong shuddered and spat blood. He sank to his knees, unable to get up again. What? Only one blow? The crowd was in an uproar, unable to believe their eyes. To them, Qi Changlong was second in strength to Zhua Fan. They never thought it possible just a layer difference. Even when the soul was taken out, would still be defeated after one blow. Such a difference made no sense. All turned grave as they watched Wen Tao. Even Zhua Fan, though he did not care much, he did have a vague smile. Chapter 673, A Hit. Chapter 673, A Hit. Proofreader, Papatonks. "Sorry, Brother Qi. I went easy, and you should just lie there for 6 hours, and you'll be fine." Wen Tao walked on, speaking words of comfort to Qi Changlong, as if to show sympathy for the loser, but the look he got from Qi Changlong was that of refusal and indignation. This is naked humiliation. Wen Tao wasn't one to be outrageous, maybe not even aiming to humiliate him. Still, having his all-out attack flicked away by a finger, this was the second time this top genius of demon scheming sect had received guidance. Bearing Zhua Fan, this was the gap in strength. This was the gap between the top of the middle 3 sects and the lower 3 sects. Yes, they were challenging the superior 3 sects, but all knew full well who the instigator was. Other than a freak like Zhua Fan, who could even take on superior 3 sects disciples, the rest were still lower 3 sects material. No matter what tricks Zhua Fan used to grow them to a middle 3 sect level, a mere clash with a true genius of a middle 3 sect showed just how far they still were. Even heaven-trailing sect and their cowardly disciples, did they not have the Zong twins? Those two beat all 6 of them like nothing. Only when Zhua Fan stepped in were they dealt with in Demon Soul Sect's match. Han Yunfeng was clearly weaker than them by a layer, but he pushed on one fight after the next. Ignoring the last 3, the first 3 fights were done at full power. He fought 3 people and still won this time. They were up against Wen Tao, the strongest in the middle 3 sections. Only now, it dawned on them just how lacking they were. Qi Changlong looked up at Bai Lian to see her use all she had, but ended up defeated in the same brief manner as he was when Tao went through them with practiced ease. Like they weren't even worth the attention. When Tao was called the gentle sword, his mind was sharp and he paid close attention to courtesy. He held no contempt for any of them. But even so, it was because of their profound weakness that it made this upstanding peer brush them off. It gave Qi Changlong a deep feeling of powerlessness. Middle 3 sects and lower 3 sects were different breeds. They might earn a middle 3 sect spot, but catching up to a real middle 3 sect would take years and years of hard work. Steward Zhua had taken them here, but it was up to them to do the rest. Qi Changlong sighed within, having come to a decision. When Tao walked forward freely and unfettered, Gue Hu, Kue Lang, and Yu Ling weren't startled, choosing to attack him together. Wen Tao, don't think that you'll have it any easier just because you took down senior brother Qi and Bai. However, Gue Hu's words were met with 3 muffled sounds when Tao popped behind them the next second. Then their necks stiffened and froze on the spot, only to collapse soon after. "Sorry, you're not enough to block my path." Wen Tao smiled as he turned to Yuer, Taiying, and Kue Gang, the 3 in the radiant stage. The trio's faces fell, unnerved and unsettled. When Tao gave a warm smile, saying, "We'll take care of your freakish steward in a moment, so please stay down and don't disturb us." When Tao swiped 2 fingers in front of the trio, and they fell powerlessly. The demon scheming sect's disciples, except Zhua Fan, were on the ground. Sword God sect had yet to suffer a single defeat. Moreover, all was quickly done by Wen Tao himself. It made all the onlookers speechless from shock. A single man had almost defeated the biggest underdog of the competition. Such power was unheard of. Even the superior 3 sects disciples were stirring. I never thought Wen Tao would be so strong. Sword God Sects disciples truly are worthy to be in the superior 3 sections. As long as Qingqiu looked intently at the fighting in the valley, especially at the lone Zhuo Fan. This final roadblock is removed. Then we'll be meeting Sword God Sect in a challenge. Yinamo squinted but mocked. That's just it. The biggest roadblock in Sword God Sect's biggest headache. Wen Tao only got rid of the small fries, leaving this dragon of the deeps alone. Even if all 10 gang up, they might not defeat him. Oh, now that you mention it, we've never seen all 10 of Sword God Sect's team fight together. Yet you're saying they can't measure up to Zhuo Fan? Qingqiu looked astounded at Yinamo. I admit Zhuo Fan is tough, but Sword God Sect is no pushover either. If there will be 10 against 1, I do believe the odds are even. Yinamo gave him a long look, then shook his head. That's because you never took on the punk's fist. I'll have to agree with Yinamo on this. The final winner in this fight is Zhuo Fan, without a doubt. Yilin nodded. Qingqiu gave him an odd look and chuckled. Junior brother, are you that certain? You didn't fight him either. Do you have to ask? Since he's my arch-enemy, I am more than sure. If he can't even deal with this little scuffle, how is he worthy of being my fated rival? Yilin smiled, but then he turned serious. And I can sense that the berserk power within him is no less than mine. If I could cope with mine, then he had to have subdued it as well. Eyeing him, Qingqiu nodded his head and resumed watching the fight on the other side. At Mystical Heaven Sect, the girls were restless in their worry for Zhuo Fan. Danner even pointed at the solitary figure. Sister Qingqiu, he's now alone against 10. Will he be fine? Shui Ruohua furrowed her brows and turned to Qingqiu, eager for her reply. Humph, facing the strongest in the middle 3 sects, the punk's done for. Shen Xiaoyu got ahead of Qingqiu. Enjoying his predicament, this earned a roll of the eye from the girls. They just could not understand where their refined young master had gone to. Ever since the matter with Yinamo, their young master was becoming more and more sinister. Incurring their dislike, Qingqiu did not mind his rude interjection. She looked at Zhuo Fan in complete confidence. No need to worry. He has always been alone. Having a few people around cheering for him won't matter, since whenever he faces someone, it's always by himself. Alone? But this is a team battle. He never once thought about relying on others. The girls frowned as they saw Zhuo Fan's tranquil gaze. It was as if having all his teammates taken out by Wen Tao meant nothing. Wen Tao noticed it as well, and he became even more solemn. Everyone knew that man, by nature, was a social animal. Even a loner would, more often than not, become dependent on the people around him. They would always feel something when these people come to harm, even if these people proved useless. The time spent alongside them proved this would happen. However, Zhuo Fan didn't so much as twitch. He was like a sword stuck in a huge rock, proud and unmarred by anyone that approached it. Like he wasn't part of the demon scheming sect, and its disciples had nothing to do with him. To this guy, beating demon scheming sect doesn't equal defeating him. Suddenly, Wen Tao chuckled, and his face grew hard. Ha ha ha. Looks like we're just going to start fighting again. Wen Tao's hand flashed and was now holding a greenish sword that oozed sharpness, a 9th-grade spiritual weapon no doubt, and charged at Zhuo Fan. Dealing with the earlier small fries, he treated it like a game. However, he was facing Zhuo Fan now, and taking out his spiritual weapon showed how deadly serious he was in this fight, investing in it with all his being. Empty gray sword wind. Whoosh! Just like a shooting start, Wen Tao stabbed at Zhuo Fan with his sword. The sharp energy around it was so acute it could almost cut space itself. He was on him in an instant. Zhuo Fan's heart jumped, even as his face remained still. He smirked as his right eye shone in 4 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage. Space Crusher. Boom! As if the space itself exploded, all plants 100 meters around Zhuo Fan started to shake and drift away into nothingness. When Tao started and shot back in haste, but his sword was in the range of Space Crusher, constantly moving and dissipating the spatial disturbance at the same time. That dissipated spatial power turned into a rumbling power flowing unabated in Space Crusher's range. This is sword energy that can wander inside Space Crusher? Zhua Fan cried out, "Damn it! Too little, too late." The sword energy roaming in Space Crusher focused on the sword, and when Tao made a sign, the sword energy gathered on the sword released a powerful force that tore an opening in Space Crusher, and the sword made a beeline for Zhua Fan using this gap. Scarlet blood flowed. Zhua Fan raised his right to block in a panic, but the sword ran his hand through. However, neither the audience nor the fighters noticed Zhua's sly smile. A great hit. This will do well. Chapter 674. Let Loose. Chapter 674. Let Loose. Proofreader. Papatonks. Scarlet blood dripped on the ground, dyeing the earth red. Zhua Fan's face throbbed as his face slowly took on a much darker tone. Until now, his nigh invincible right arm was twitching in correlation with the pain it sent. Mystical heaven Sects girls gasped, filled with worry. Danner was frantic. Sister Qingqiu. He's hurt badly. Lightly furrowing her brow, Qingqiu's heart tightened in silence. She had complete and utter confidence in Zhua Fan that no matter what he faced or when, this man would always come out on top. Even now, her belief hadn't been stirred. Yet despite this, she could still feel pain and worry for him when she saw Zhua Fan's bloody right hand. This was Qingqiu's stance. She saw herself as nothing less than Zhua Fan's woman. If a woman did not trust her man, then she could never call herself his to begin with. However, she would keep her eyes on her man, and the slightest wound would fill her with worry. It might sound contradictory, and it was. Why worry when you believed he would win? This worry proved, in fact, you didn't believe him. This was the nature of women, filled with contradictions yet emotional to the core. Trust and tenderness. Looking at Qingqiu, her eyes filled with worry and anxiety. Shui Ruohua's opinion of her never fell. It occurred to her, then and there, and she looked back at Zhua Fan with a sigh. It looks helpless and bitter, but I yearn for it. How is this possible? I had never managed to scratch him, and a measly when Tao ends up piercing that freak's arm? Yinamo was overwhelmed by such a radical development on the screen that he shouted his indignation. Wu Qingqiu eyed him, then smiled. Yinamo, aren't you a bit too conceited? I find when Tao just a layer under you, but no less weak. Coupled with the fact he made a sneak attack while exercising caution, Zhua Fan was bound to be hit hard. Maybe he underestimated his opponent since he was from a middle 3 sect. Brow shaking, Yinamo was still incredulous. An almighty expert like Zhua Fan, who resisted him every step of the way, would make such a gross miscalculation as overlooking sneak attacks, especially when he could still hear Zhua Fan's patronizing and preaching words. Sure, they were insufferable, but every word showed just how cautious this freak was, meticulous to the core. So how the hell would he suddenly turn sloppy in the face of challenging the middle 3 sect's strongest sect? It was too basic a mistake to make. What if it's on purpose? While Yinamo was using every bit of brainpower to figure out just what he saw, a faint voice pierced the fog. Yilin's sharp "I never left Zhua Fan." His brow furrowed, his face solemn. Wu Qingqiu raised an eyebrow, puzzled. Junior brother, where did that come from? Yinamo looked at him as well, eager for the reply. Just a hunch, nothing more. Yilin shook his head and said, I don't believe he ever underestimates his enemy and makes such a gross mistake by taking this fight as trivial. The only plausible explanation is that he did it on purpose. Rolling his eyes, Wu Qingqiu shook his head and sighed. Junior brother, you're just too stubborn. No one is perfect, and we all make mistakes. Just because you find someone that caught your eye doesn't mean only you can beat him. Can't the rest of us have a sliver of chance as well? You try finding anyone who agrees with that logic. Ha ha ha. Yin Mo's face twitched, but he shook his head in the end, thinking here. I thought this guy is great, but only has this dumb reason. Yilin spared them a brief glance but said nothing. He kept staring at Zhua Fan with all his focus to see if he could find anything that unraveled the mystery. While Wu Qingqiu and Yinamo didn't understand Yilin's reasoning, there was one person in this vast audience that saw through Zhua Fan in the shadows. A glittering pair of eyes blinked at Zhua Fan's right, now gushing with blood. With a smirk, ha ha ha, this punk is cunning indeed. He actually found such a grandstanding way of hiding his wounded arm. Danqing Shen held his beard as he smiled in amazement. The kid could scout the sacred mine, and the wound he got from Atlas' sword could only be hidden for so long. I never dreamed he would think of using someone to strike his wound and hide its origins. I don't think there'd be any more reasonable explanation than this. But what is truly shocking is he actually went with it. He used his Sects disciples in the fight with Demon Soul Sect to stall. He didn't fight Han Yunfeng because the kid was too weak. If he ended up wounding this Grand Dark Horse, then it would only raise suspicion. However, if it was Wen Tao instead, his power fit the bill, making this kind of wound obvious. It's truly rare for someone like him to know patience and understand choices. Anyone else thinking this plan would not consider every detail and would just fake being wounded in the fight with Demon Soul Sect. And that would have had the opposite effect. Ha ha ha. Danqing chuckled. His strength and sharp mind make him a marvel of this world. I would have taken this boy along if I had not come for the sword this time and didn't want to raise alarm. Sigh, what a shame. Shaking his head, Danqing Shen's figure was gone from the shadows. Meanwhile, with a groan, Wen Tao made a sign, and the sword stuck in Zhuo Fan's right flew back in his hand, gazing at the bright edge of his sword and then at Zhuo Fan's red arm. Wen Tao's brow was furrowed in puzzlement. Even he found it hard to believe he could land such a heavy blow. But then he cupped his hands in respect. Ha ha, brother Zhuo, sorry. I hope you will overlook my overbearing attack. It's fine since I won't be going easy either. Zhuo Fan flicked his right and splattered the blood, covering it on the ground. His face was heavy, and his voice was low, as if enraged. Though no one figured out yet that his heart was dancing in joy. Now I don't have anything to worry about and can let loose. Ha ha. Wen Tao's face twitched, brother Zhuo. It wasn't on purpose. I didn't mean to give you such a heavy wound. I was only distraught by brother Zhuo's power, but never imagined. You mean to say I don't live up to my name? That I'm not so tough to even take one hit? Is that it? Zhuo Fan faked anger. Then, brother one, allow me to show you all that I'm capable of. Now I can't waste brother Wen's kind intentions, can I? Wen Tao's mouth twitched, and he shook his head. But then his gaze steeled. Let's go. Since brother Zhuo wants to let loose, then I'll be happy to oblige. Wen Tao swung his sword, and an invisible ripple shot from its edge straight for Zhuo Fan. However, unlike the brash space crusher's way of unleashing its power, the sword's vibrations were gentle, like silken threads drifting with the winds, as a dinghy on wave doth drift, and willow branch bend in the wind so swift, never more than a finger lift. Such is the way of peace and gift. With that poem, Wen Tao pointed at his sword and smiled. Brother Zhuo, the name of this sword is Ephemeral Life, a gentle and aloof sword. It drifts with the world and stands free of burden. It is not a sword meant for brute force, but refined and carefree in nature. But even gentleness has power. Even it can take a life. Do take care, brother Zhuo. Zhuo Fan's heart sank, and he understood his meaning in Space Crusher. Everything was pulverized. Yet this sword's sword energy remained because it used softness to glide through brute force. However, while the sword looked soft, it was hard. Only when combined with that gentle sword energy could it release such a power that could break Space Crusher. Recalling the sword's name, Zhuo Fan had figured out everything, such as the way of peace and gift. This did not mean it was weak, but it was crafty and ready to pounce when the time was right. While a breeze could not shift a mountain, it can move me with it, thus borrowing its power with time and unleashing it all at the right time. This was the meaning of the sword's name and what made gentle sword Wen Tao deadly. Gentleness acted as entrapment, while hardness struck one's defenses, ending everything in a split second, just like before. Having understood all about his opponent, he also had the perfect response. Raw power could not beat gentleness as it was meant to carry it. Only through destruction and instant annihilation could he finish this before the opponent gathered momentum. Zhuo Fan sported a vague grin. With purple lightning arching around his right hand, the fist turned into a dragon claw, ready to rip the sky. Wen Tao was startled, his face twitching. Did I just talk too much? Showing off allowed this punk to find my sword's weakness. Wen Tao felt like smacking himself hard to wake up. Chapter 675, Soft to Hard. Chapter 675, Soft to Hard. Proofreader, Papatonks. Brother Zhuo is truly an astute man, to able to understand my gentle sword. Ha ha ha. Wen Tao glanced at the purple lightning and let out a strained laugh. Zhuo Fan grinned. You're far too kind. It's brother Wen who explained it to me. It's truly a dumb thing to show off all your cards before the fight even begins. But today, I witnessed Brother Wen's actions and heard your words. Now I have a whole new view of it. Brother Wen didn't do it out of foolishness, but as a generous gentleman, ha ha ha. Everyone watching the fight burst out laughing. When Tao looked bashful, maybe regardless of being a fool or a gentleman, I'm sure with Brother Zhua's perception, you would have noticed it after a couple of moves without even me saying it. Rather revealing this before the fight to everyone so that I would be seen as open-minded. However, knowing my sword and defeating it are two different things. When Tao smiled and raised his sword, he flicked it and sent several sword energies straight for Zhua Fan. Brother Zhua, take this gentle sword, ever-flowing and ever-changing. Whoosh! Zhua Fan's heart sank, and he got himself ready. The purple lightning on his right hand crackled, but as the sword energies reached him, they turned soft, floating in the air, and surrounded him, trapping him in their center when Tao waved his sword again and sent more sharp sword energy at Zhua Fan, turning into thousands of strands in a blink of an eye. However, like before, the sword energy turned soft right before reaching Zhua Fan. Drifting in the wind, he was now trapped in a quagmire of sword energy, with no way out. Fiend Yang turned grave and face-bombed. This punk is just too cocky. He not once came to see the middle 3 Sects stage, and has no idea what Wen Tao can do with this attack. He is caught in thousands of strands, unable to break free of the sword energy. Be it heaven-trailing sect or demon soul sect, neither could escape it when it was unleashed in their team battles. While Zhua Fan was tougher, it was still unknown if he could pull it off. Fiend Yang and Fiendine were looking very tense. The one who was in the center of this entrapment looked far more relaxed by comparison. Zhua Fan just grinned and used his right dragon claw to swipe. Along with the crackling, the purple lightning destroyed any sword energy it touched. The purple lightning has the power to destroy the world. While its power is lacking, its character is one of destruction. When Tao's gentle sword energy had just met its nemesis, Yilin showed a hint of a smile, but then he turned solemn. However, I'm sure Wen Tao is aware of it as well. But since he does something so pointless, he must have a backup plan. Wu Qingqiu and Yinamo gave Yilin a deep look, then returned to the fight with a nod. Just as this genius of the superior 3 Sects said, the sword energy strands got crushed, but Wen Tao showed no worry, making a sign. Wen Tao made the struck sword energy that floated about. As a result, to enter the sword in his hand, Zhua Fan noticed, to his amazement, that ephemeral life exploded in power. Zhua Fan's heart shook, and he understood gentle sword's true meaning. It's to drift alongside you like the wind until you are squeezed to death. These gentle sword energy strands acted like a fence. If one started bashing it, the sword energy fragments would return to the sword and turn from soft to hard, greatly bolstering its power. The source of this power was, on one hand, the soft sword energy gathering on the sword, and on the other, the power of the adversary fueled within the blade. This way, the more he let it drag out, the worse it would be for him. So that's why he said that knowing and defeating it are different things. Regardless, once his strands are out, he holds the advantage. Unless one uses force, there's no quick way to end it. Ha ha ha, how amusing. Since this is the case, I'll punch right through. Zhua Fan's eyes flashed and shot for Wen Tao. But just then, under Wen Tao's urging, the soft sword energy strands plugged the gap, and Zhua Fan was trapped again. However, Zhua Fan, having seen his tricks, there was no way he would let himself get stalled again, so he swiped his lightning-streaked claw roar. With a draconic roar, the purple lightning-fueled claw crushed the soft sword energy, clearing a path. Zhua Fan took the next second to get out of the circle. The scattered pieces of sword energy gathered on the sword, but the remaining soft sword energy strands had no time to block Zhua Fan again. When Tao's brow shook, and his gestures changed, the soft sword energy turned hard, stabbing Zhua Fan from all directions. Zhua Fan grinned and flicked his right, shattering the strands with the purple lightning. When Tao raised an eyebrow and didn't dally, he changed his hand sign, and all the sword energy gathered on the sword. The sword's edge gleamed with unspeakable power. At that moment, Zhua Fan now finally arrived before Wen Tao and struck wraith style. Second move, ghostly dragon claw, soft to hard, heaven-breaking sword. Wen Tao did not hesitate to stab straight for Zhua Fan as well. In an instant, ephemeral life, looked to have been soft all its existence and turned hard in this fleeting moment. With that stab, it was like the world's power fell on Zhuo Fan's shoulders. Zhuo Fan's claw came like a raging dragon, violent and overbearing. It was as if this claw was going to tear the world asunder. Clang. The claw and sword met in a screeching clash, a clash that only lasted for a split second before they separated. Zhuo Fan's body stood in his spot, his attack blocked, while Wen Tao was thrown tens of meters from the sudden force of impact. When he straightened up, he looked at Zhuo Fan in shock, puzzlement, and disbelief. What just happened? Why did a casual sword strike wound him so before? Yet my all-out attack did nothing. He even managed to bounce me back. Just what is happening? Was he truly careless before? Is that why I hit him? Now that he's serious, there's no way of hurting him. This guy is strong to a terrifying degree. Gulping, Wen Tao showed no glee but unprecedented seriousness. The ones watching the fight had no idea what Zhuo Fan was really capable of, especially that ridiculous body of his. How is he still human when not even a 9th-grade spiritual weapon can't scratch him? While he was shocked, Zhuo Fan was even more so. His right hand used the world's power, that of the invincible sacred beast, Qilin. It should be natural to win any encounter when it is involved. However, he never thought it possible to be blocked, leaving him depressed. Wen Tao is good. Gentle Sword is not only capable but uses both soft and hard skills to perfection. They would scream if others knew he was depressed because of this tiny little detail. You're the damn violent brute here. Dude, you're depressed because he blocked you? Then what about the rest of us? Should we be in the pits of despair? Luckily, he didn't show it. Keeping it to himself as he went for Wen Tao again, he could see that Gentle Sword no longer had as much power in his sword as before, so all he had to do was strike fast before Wen Tao gathered some more power, which was when his sword would be defeated. Whoosh. He reached Wen Tao in a flash and swiped with his claw. Wen Tao hurriedly blocked with his sword but was sent flying. The force pierced his innards and forced him to spit blood. Haha, I just knew it. You can never beat me directly without the Gentle Sword's accumulated power. Zhuo Fan did not pursue and smiled. Brother One, do you have any tricks? Use them now, or surrender. Since you are a gentleman and courteous, I will reply in kind. Wen Tao looked long and hard at Zhuo Fan. I knew I couldn't match you alone. I was only testing you from the start. Knowing to back off when it's futile is something I told others, but I can never retreat. However, brother Zhuo, the team battle is just getting started. Wen Tao's eyes flashed, and he stood up after wiping the blood from his mouth. The other 9 Sword God sect disciples were now on the move. Chapter 676, Harmony of Soul. Chapter 676, Harmony of Soul. Proofreader, Papatonks. Finally, Sword God sect hadn't yet involved all their disciples in team battles. Now, they're going all out against one man. Ha ha ha. Wu Qingqiu chuckled, his eyes filled with excitement. I can't wait to see what Sword God sect is made of. Yinamo also nodded. Ever since the middle 3 sects stage, the Sword God sect has been hiding something. Maybe they have a weapon to challenge the superior 3 sects with. However, they're forced to use it on an underdog. Wu Qingqiu thought the same. Thump. With heavy steps, Sword God sect's 9 disciples came behind Wen Tao as if to give him support. As they stared at Zhuo Fan, filled with thirst for battle, they all saw what Zhuo Fan could do, and even their team leader couldn't deal with him after going all out. But they were not in the least bit anxious but steeled in their determination. Zhuo Fan approved of their attitudes for some reason. Zhuo Fan felt that Wen Tao's Gentle Sword title was half attributed to the 9 disciples, as if the Gentle Sword's true power would be unleashed only when they worked together. Zhuo Fan, I know you're a body cultivator of freakish build, and not just anyone can withstand it. However, now we will strike your weak spot. Do watch out. Xie Tianshang stepped forward with a serious look. Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow and nodded. Give me everything you got. I'll take it you all on. Hey, you can't just throw the match just because he's an old buddy. He's our strongest opponent yet. Wen Tao shook his head, smiling. Xie. Ugh, I always feel your name makes me lose out every time I say it. Ha ha ha. Did you not see me talking too much and ending up revealing my secret? You saw how I lost. So you better learn from my mistakes. Smiley face, Sielit, means thanks. Like you wouldn't have lost anyway, even without babbling and explaining your style. A calm voice echoed out, a loss is a loss. If you keep looking for excuses, you're only going against the gentleman's code. They all turned to see Zhuo Fan scratching his chin, knowing the thick sarcasm in his words when Tao's face fell and snapped. Brother Zhuo, I get that you win, but can you please not kick someone when he's down? That's how it is if you don't admit it. Zhuo Fan grinned when Tao huffed, then flicked his head away in annoyance. Xie Tianshang smiled. Brothers, we're here to do battle, not squabble. What would that win even account for? The next fight is the one to determine the real winner. Well said. What does personal honor mean when fighting in a team battle? When Tao's eyes lit up, Brother Zhuo, get ready. This won't be so easy. We'll see when it ends. Zhuo Fan smiled, but his eyes showed caution. Sword God Sects' 10 disciples made signs, and 10 glinting swords flew from them and into the sky with a ripple. Zhuo Fan was startled, and so was everyone. Someone even shouted in shock. That's their souls. Just what are they planning to do by releasing 10 souls? Yenemo looked stunned. Wu Qingqiu was frowning, shaking his head. The soul is the core of one's spirit. Unless one would fight to his dying breath, no one would just take it out. However, facing an expert like Zhuo Fan, a soul would easily end up damaged. Aren't they looking to die by releasing them all? This is the only way for them to release all they have. Only by fighting to the end. Yilin sighed. Why must they go so far? Zhuo Fan is my opponent. Why are they in such a rush to stake their lives? Wu Qingqiu sighed, his face solemn and filled with respect for Sword God Sects' disciples, knowing full well there's no chance they have no remorse in giving their very being in defeating their adversary. This is a warrior's honor and life pursuit. These 10 people are worthy of our respect. Yilin and Yin Mo looked at Wu Qingqiu and nodded at this time. The ever-stony, exalted double dragons finally expressed emotions, talking and laughing, working together and staking one's life. This was both foolish and also dedication. Zhuo Fan, if you can't block our attack, you must dodge. We won't attack again, but that will mean your defeat. Don't be stubborn and risk your life for nothing. Xie Tianshang made a sign and shouted at Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan started, looking at them oddly. He could sense their move would shake the world itself. But, hey, who's the one risking his life here? You got your souls out and everything. Are you that confident I wouldn't just pluck your souls one by one? When Tao saw that he was skeptical, so he mediated. Brother Zhuo, junior brother Xie isn't joking. You'll know in a moment. Our strike will hit you right where it hurts the most. When Tao made his own sign and shouted, Harmony of Soul Sword, gather. The other 9 people echoed him in shouting and gestures. The 10 swords in the heavens above gathered, and a strange, gentle power ebbed from their center. Like a simple string, it linked all the sword souls together when Tao shouted again, and a dazzling white light brightened the skies. It was so intense the sun itself paled once the light passed. The people cried in shock. 9 swords were gone from the sky, leaving just one. But this sword soul released an incredible power with every motion. The slightest movement shook space enough to rip it. That's a soul harmony? Exalted by Mei cried. Everyone's soul is different and mutually exclusive. But there are arts in this world, soul harmonies, that can unify them. It's rare enough to see 3 souls join together. But Sword God Sect managed to do it with 10? This is like a miracle. Exalted Hei Ran nodded as well, equally amazed. Sword God Sect has the sword at its core, with everything related to it. All of their disciples form a sword soul as well. To them, it will be much easier to practice soul harmony. But this is just too overwhelming for it to happen with 10 in one moment. I believe the core of it is gentle sword, that one Tao. Soft and hard. Hard enough to break the heavens and soft enough to absolve anyone. He is the tie that binds them. This is how such a remarkable art like soul harmony came to be. Exalted by Mei squinted and nodded. The list of names once again appeared in his hand. Wu Qingqiu and Yenemo were stunned. 10 souls fused into one. Such a soul power was more than mere deadly. Fan had so far only shown off his body's outrageous power. No one here ever knew anything about his soul, or how strong it was. No wonder when Tao and Xie Tianshang warned Fan to dodge it. Such a strong soul attack would rip Fan's soul to shreds if his were any weaker, and even if it were strong, it would still be left with a deadly wound. When Tao was called Gentle Sword, yet his final move was Soul Harmony. He truly walked an incredibly overbearing path, yet soft to the extreme. This sword was beyond strong. He's in trouble. Wu Qingqiu sighed. Yilin looked grave as well. Only Yin and Mo looked eager, having some expectations. He only caught a glimpse of Fan's soul last time, and it was by no means weak. As for how strong it was, he didn't live up to the challenge. But now, this freak soul would finally come out. Sister Qingqiu, what now? How could any one man take on such a powerful soul? On Mystical Heaven's Sects side, Danner was filled with worry and restlessness as she pulled on Chu Qingqiu's clothes. She was more worried than anyone about Fan's predicament. Xian Xiaoyu said flatly, "It's best for that devil to die." Humph. The girls only ever looked at Chu Qingqiu in worry. They all knew she knew Fan the most. She would know in her heart if Fan could come out alive. However, she was also somewhat alarmed since she didn't know a thing about Fan's trump cards. However, from what she saw of Fan's cool expression, her heart regained calm, and she smiled. He's going to be fine. Chapter 677, Heaven Dragon Soul. Chapter 677, Heaven Dragon Soul. Proofreader, Papatonks. Boom. A sharp whistling wind made itself known. The 10 fused sword souls were as huge as a hill, pressing down on Fan. The thick aura made everything around Fan quiver and crack the earth. Rocks split, and then the dust and rock fragments started floating upward. It was not that the laws of physics were out of whack, but it was the Earth's reaction to being pushed. It was as if the sword's gravity outweighed the Earth's. Fiend Yang gasped in shock. The soul harmony of 10 sword souls was beyond anything they had imagined. What kind of power would require showing such a strong reaction? It was this power that was bearing down on Fan's head. However, he was still the same. Standing there in absolute calm. Fiend Yang was sweating buckets. And it wasn't demon scheming sects venerables, but everyone else was getting nervous over Fan's fate. Even the exalted showed serious looks. This move was a true combined team attack. Not one person here, not even among the superior 3 sects, could take such an attack head-on. However, if one such person came out on top from the exchange, he would become a candidate for the best in Western lands on the spot. He might even challenge Danqing Shen's position in the future. The 2 exalted watched Fan's figure with extreme seriousness and furrowed brows. Brother Zhua, are you really not going to step away? Seeing Zhua facing this new sword soul's power unflinching and undeterred, when Tao felt like he had to warn him again. However, Fan merely smiled and shook his head. If I move, won't that mean I admit defeat? Since you, Brother One, have pushed on despite the obvious outcome, wouldn't I be a coward if I acted otherwise? A true man, I see. This fight, regardless of the outcome, I'll remember it. And I'll remember you. With a shout, when Tao's hand sign changed, and the huge sharp sword soul went right for Fan, the pressure increased manifold in an instant. If before, its drift downward only gave a heavy presence, this time, it was more like a hammer bashing into you until you were mush. Not even the ever-dauntless Fan could remain unfazed under it, stalling his breath, so strong. Fan had his own calculation of how strong this attack might be, but that did not mean he had to be careless, making signs himself now just as it was about to slam into him. Everyone watched with bated breaths, watching as a startling draconic roar came from within his body. Prismatic light drenched his surroundings as the mighty sword soul trembled and stopped. Sword God Sects' 10 disciples shivered, watching with incredulous eyes. Why would their invincible soul soar up and stall in midair? It was like something was holding it back. The moment they saw what it was, their hearts cried out in shock as they gasped at the impossible sight. Their awe-inspiring sword soul was in a sharp dragon claw, covered in prismatic light. Behind that claw was 100 meters long dragon, circling Fan and keeping him safe. The piercing and overbearing dragon eyes made all, even the audience, shudder inside, making them jump to their feet. It was as if they were nothing but ants under those dragon eyes. This naked disregard was felt to their core. beasts, Wu Qingqiu cried out. Yinamo was just as shocked. Now I see why just half revealing his soul last time would display so much power. If memory serves, this must be the legendary Heaven Dragon Soul. Across all the Western lands, there are only the two exalted that managed to form such a soul. Yinamo turned around to glance at the exalted. The usually composed elders were now standing, shocked at this wonder that was Zhuo Fan. Heaven Dragon Soul was the strongest in the world, and its forming was just as undertaking. But it went beyond their wildest imagination that a mere radiant stage imp would do it. Even Danqing Shun back then couldn't. The two exalted exchanged a glance and looked on the Western lands. Finally had another mighty genius. I see. So that's why you didn't fear their united sword soul. So you formed the Heaven Dragon Soul as well. Yilin chuckled as he watched the mighty presence on the screen. That's for the best. It's the least my fated rival should have. Wait, back up. Won't that make you the one my master told me about that stole the dragon power from the dragon tomb? Ha ha ha. Wu Qingqiu jerked at his words. Junior brother, what do you mean by dragon tomb? Oh, nothing. I'm just saying this guy is worthy of being my adversary, just by his courage alone. Ha ha ha. Yilin chuckled. Wu Qingqiu muttered in doubt. Junior brother, I know you're amazing, but there are some things I don't understand. Now that he took out the Heaven Dragon Soul, yet you're still saying he is the perfect adversary for you. Does that mean you have a soul to match his? That is a secret. You'll know soon enough. Yilin had a mysterious smile. Wu Qingqiu's doubts only increased, but did not push the issue. Only now did the rest of the crowd realize the implication of this soul, and they grew excited as they drowned the stands in a clamor. Heaven Dragon Soul, something only the exalted double dragons have in the entire Western lands. But how can the great exalted just show their souls? I never thought it possible that today I'd be given such a treat. An average disciple actually formed the strongest soul. It was breathtaking. It also lives up to its name, blocking the power of 10 souls. Mystical Heaven's Sects girls were overwhelmed, chattering in glee. The fiend venerables were so touched they were on the verge of tears. Since we have an ultimate genius with a Heaven Dragon Soul in our sect, does that mean we can aim for double Dragon Manor's position? Frickin' hell, this windfall is just too sudden. They were just some no-name lower 3 sect, and now had the prospects of becoming the head of Western lands. This damn brat, couldn't he have told us the great news earlier? I was so scared my poor little heart was about to burst out of my chest. Fiend Yang wiped his nose in tears of joy. Some men's joy was another men's sorrow. Zhuo Fan's display of the Heaven Dragon Soul was unquestionably a moment of happiness for Demon Scheming Sect and his friends. However, for the superior 3 sects that were about to face his challenge, it was nothing short of a nightmare. Everyone paled on the spot. While the 10 Sword God sect disciples facing this monster were close to tears when Tao glanced at Zhuo Fan and the huge dragon above, then cursed, Seriously, Zhuo Fan? Is this what you call cowardice? What pushing on despite obvious outcome? With the Heaven Dragon Soul, there's nothing you can't do. What's with all the posturing and playing the victim? You even made me believe it. I did say that I would face you, but that did not refer to you. What are you getting all that excited about? Rolling his eyes, Zhuo Fan refused to admit his wrong, mocking, "Want to continue? If not, throw in the towel." Staring at Zhuo Fan, Wen Tao snorted in anger. Throw in the towel? No way. When our souls combine, we will draw blood. Wen Tao shouted, and the 10 people made a new sign. Their eyes burning with fighting spirit, everyone heard a sudden ear-piercing screeching as the sword soul and the Heaven Dragon Soul claw scraped against its nails step by step. About to come out of its grasp, Heaven Dragon Soul was strong, but 10 sword souls combined was nothing to scoff at. The huge sword was now approaching Zhuo Fan. Ready to smash him, Zhuo Fan's heart jumped and made hasty signs himself. The dragon claw upped its force by a third. The 10 disciples shook as blood leaked from their mouths, but they still pressed on. The sword soul kept sliding off as the claw could no longer keep it locked. Wen Tao, are you that intent on risking everything? At this rate, this will only end with me being smashed by your sword soul, or if I shatter your souls with my dragon claw. In my case, it will only be my body that perishes while your soul will be destroyed. Your price is so much steeper. Zhuo Fan's hands trembled in the sign he made. He looked at the incoming storm and warned the 10 disciples, gnashing his teeth to the point of bleeding. When Tao shouted his last will, braving the dangers despite the obvious outcome, that's the way of the sword. If we back down now, we'll never live to accept this shame, and never would we reach the peak of swordsmanship. Death is a much better option. Zhuofan, I used to be a martial fanatic, only knowing that strength is needed to win and not one's path. Now that I'm in the Sword God sect, I finally found my path. This fight, today, I do not fight you. Only follow the path I chose without turning back. Xie Tianshang shouted at the sky. The rest of his fellow disciples echoed him. Never turning back. Never turning back. Chapter 678. The Only Team. Chapter 678. The Only Team. Proofreader. Papatonks. Zhuofan gave the 10 of them a long look, taking in their determination and the blood around their mouths with a slight nod. Since that is the case, I can only oblige. Wraith Style's second move, Ghostly Dragon Claw. Zhuofan's hand made a gesture, and the Heaven Dragon Soul roared, increasing the power of its claw crack. The huge sword soul sported a hairline fracture, causing the 10 disciples to tremble once more and spew blood. Even so, they held on, and the sword soul kept sliding downward. Zhuofan's gestures continued, and Heaven Dragon Soul's claw's power was increased again. When he finished going through the signs, the Heaven Dragon Soul used the Ghostly Dragon Claw, further amplifying the damage to the sword soul, which was on the verge of shattering. The Sword God sect disciples were about to have their souls purged in that instant. However, as Zhuofan's signs came to a close, he suddenly stopped right at the end. He grumbled and relaxed his hands before making a different sign. Wraith Style. Third move, Necro Dragon Screech. Roar. The power of the claw abated, and the dragon opened its maw to release a roar at the sword soul. A powerful sound wave carried Heaven Dragon Soul's soul power and slammed into the sword soul, making it tremble with a bang. The huge sword soul split into 10 souls as they flew back to their bodies. When Tao and his fellow disciples shook and spewed blood before collapsing, the audience was shaken by this outcome. Filled with complex emotions, this showed them in no uncertain terms that Zhuofan, this demonic cultivator, had spared their lives at the last moment. This same ruthless and vindictive demonic cultivator let righteous cultivators live. It was beyond baffling. While there could be friendship, everyone knew that the demonic path was pitiless. The fact Zhuofan had urged them to give up was already kind enough, and even if he had killed them, no one would call it into question. The ending, however, was when Zhuofan was about to doom them for eternity. That last moment made him change his mind, opting for splitting their combined soul and sparing them. He only left them with a heavy wound. This made the audience baffled as to his intentions. A demonic cultivator is a twisted and deceitful individual. He is making Sword God sect owe him. He's making sure that Demon Scheming sect will now have a middle 3 sect ally after this. Humph, vile demon spawn. You may be able to deceive others, but you'll never succeed in pulling the wool over my eyes. Leader of the Universal Righteous Sects team, Zhao Dezhu's eyes shone, having seen through his play. He turned to his fellow disciples and admonished them. See that? See how cunning a demonic madman is. Now the Sword God sect would be moved to tears. Sigh, this is how another righteous sect degenerates. One disciple started sucking up to him the minute he finished. Senior brother is right. I only hope the Sword God sect disciples can be as wise and open-minded as senior brother to see this vile spawn's treachery. But how can there be someone as righteous and outstanding as senior brother all around us? I fear that they would fail to understand this truth. Exactly. Rubbing his chin, Zhao Dezhu felt elated at this guy's skill and flattery, taken to the rank of art. He sighed most dramatically. That's what worries me. Without someone like me in their sect, they would be easy prey to these demons' hypocrisy. That's why I keep telling them not to come in contact with demonic cultivators, or they will one day fall prey to their machinations. Especially that Ultimate Clarity sect, as the head of the superior 3 sects, should take it upon itself to root out all evil, demonic cultivators in particular. But they, senior brother, please calm your anger. I can see that such a righteous cause will soon be squashed in the hands of these undivided sections. It'd be better if we become the head of the superior 3 sects and a just model for all the righteous sects out there. That disciple was laying on as thick as possible, especially that best disciple in Western lands. That title should be Senior Brothers by right. Only Senior Brother and his righteous conviction can lead the Western lands. Zhao Dezhu nodded at every word with a natural face like it was all a given. But then his face sank as he turned to Zhuo Fan. That may be, but I can't defeat Wu Qingqiu, nor Yinamo. Now that another monster with a heaven dragon soul appeared, it just had to be a demonic madman. Is this the omen to the doom of righteousness? Senior Brother, history shows us that evil never triumphs against good. Sooner or later, the best in Western lands can only be Senior Brother. That guy's flattery just wouldn't stop. Zhao Dezhu was feeling much better for it too, but he also knew the truth. Screw your evil never triumphs against good. When it's all said and done, it's all a matter of whose fist is bigger. They were last in the superior 3 sects rankings, and now that the demon scheming sect came challenging, the odds were they couldn't even keep their spot. So what head of the 9 sects? I'd be happy if we keep just our status. Grumbling on the inside, Zhao Dezhu shook his head, thinking of ways to make that happen. Wu Qingqiu rubbed his chin, giving Zhuo Fan a long look. Is he doing this for the future of his sect? Demon Scheming Sect is just a lower 3 sect. Rising to the rank of middle 3 sect and crushing Sword God Sect's team in the process would only earn their hatred. It would only make things worse. It's one thing to become a middle 3 sect, and another to grow into one. That takes time, even with Double Dragon Manor's resources. I think it is a straightforward decision. When with me, he didn't even care I was from a superior 3 sect, so why would he care about a middle 3 sect? Yinamo shook his head. Moreover, demonic cultivators are known to be volatile and rash. When they say they'll strike, that's what they'll do. So why change tunes midway? The way I see it, he just didn't feel like killing them, nothing more. Wu Qingqiu raised an eyebrow. Didn't feel like it? The blade was at their throat, yet he didn't feel like swinging it? Since when can demonic cultivators easily withdraw their bloodlust? Yinamo fell silent. As a demonic cultivator himself, he knew it far better. His thirst to kill had to be satiated fully when it was brought out. Otherwise, it would stifle and work against him, harming his soul. The chance was it might even make a hole in one's convictions. As for why Zhuo Fan did it in stride, it was beyond him. Ignorance makes you amaze. Yi Lin butted in with his mockery. Be it demonic or righteous cultivators, they all want to elevate their heart and mentality to an unrestrained degree. What's so odd about Zhuo Fan restraining his desire for blood? This only proves his heart has reached an incredible level, even above many of our elders, even beyond mine. What I find odd, though, is why he did it. Is it really out of friendship? That's not the demonic path. Yi Lin frowned, his mind filled with countless thoughts. High above the stands, the two exalted shared a glance and beamed. By May, see that? This boy is just like us back then. Exalted He Ran chuckled, looking at the baffled looks of the crowd. Exalted by May nodded as well. Yes, this is a reason not many can see. While demonic and righteousness are conflicting, they're all paths leading to the same destination. Among those that seek it, a kind of kinship forms, which is natural. Like us, Zhuo Fan and the Sword God Sects team also have it. Right? Mortals pursue glory and riches, something even cultivators can't completely separate themselves from. How few are there? Those pursuing the end of the road with their whole being. They won't understand while the rascal refrained from killing them. Only we know. Seeing Wen Tao's team so driven on the path of the sword, it's like I'm seeing myself and my determination. Even to a demonic cultivator, as long as he has this pursuit at heart, he will never deal the last blow to a fellow path traveler. The demonic path is cruel, but they value heroes just as much. I want all of those 10 boys. Ha ha ha. Exalted by May took out the roster and scribbled down 10 more names. A white pillar burst into view, conveying the judge's words. The victor is decided. You all can now return. Zhuo Fan pulled the Heaven Dragon soul back inside and looked at Wen Tao's team to see their wan faces filled with unwillingness. We lost. So let's just go. We lost. After all, Wen Tao shook his head with a bitter smile as he got up. He turned to his team with blood dripping from his lips. Junior brothers, let's go. Don't be discouraged. We might have lost this challenge, but it's not our swordsmanship that did. Our path can move on. One day we will defeat this monster and wash away this shame. Are you sure? Raising an eyebrow, Zhuofan smiled, glaring at him. When Tao stabbed his finger as he shouted, "Next time, we will win. I'll be happy to meet you again in battle." Zhuofan turned serious. The next time we fight, though, I hope it will be all 10 of you. When Tao clenched his fists and spoke with power, "Don't you worry, you will." The disciples cupped their fists. Still filled with fighting spirit like this was their victory. Sword God Sects team walked through the white pillar, but before they did so, they helped up demon scheming Sects disciples and went together. Zhuofan looked on with a smile. When it came Xie Tianshang's turn, he looked at Zhuofan. Although this might sound brazen and ignorant, I'll still challenge you the next time. It's not just to defeat you, but so that my sword would grow on. And I won't be challenging you alone, but with those 9 senior brothers you defeated with me. Xie Tianshang left through the pillar, but then he heard Zhuofan chuckle just as he went through. Xie Tianshang, Sword God Sect has now caught my eye. The only team. You won the team battle. I only won the singles. Hearing this, Tianshang grinned as he moved through the white curtain. Chapter 679, Superior 3 Sect Stage. Chapter 679, Superior 3 Sect Stage. Proofreader, Papatonks. Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sects teams had returned from the battlefield. This had been a rare occurrence in the eyes of the public, one which filled them with admiration. The righteous and demonic sides had a friendly spar in every sense of the word. This showed that no matter the differences between demonic and righteous, there would always be something that connected them. At the very least, the disciples' extreme devotion and stalwart mentality demonstrated a shared goal between one another. They all wanted to reach the same point on the cultivation path. The judge eyed both teams and smiled as he announced, in this middle 3 sects challenge stage, Demon Scheming Sect versus Sword God Sect, the Demon Scheming Sect's 9-member team had 8 wounded and only 1 standing. Sword God Sect's 10-member team had all of its disciples defeated. In conclusion, the winner of this challenge is Demon Scheming Sect. Clap. Sharp and loud clapping echoed throughout the arena as the audience expressed their approval and admiration toward Demon Scheming Sect. This fight was fought with honor by both sides. Demon Scheming Sect's win had been frank and conclusive. How this heroic battle was fought brought these people a sense of awe. The fact they were sects of different paths yet had been so cordial with each other only made this feeling stronger. Zhuofan, mainly, was the target of most applauses since Demon Scheming Sect managed to score this win based solely on one man. He had done the impossible in turning the tables when he was at his most dangerous moment. It all came to a close with letting off Sword God Sect's team and not humiliating them further, showing his respect for his adversaries. People had begun to understand that this unprecedented expert of the Demon Scheming Sect was not just a killer bent on slaughter. Do you see? Everyone is watching him. Even against an adversary, he shows respect when earned. That is his principle. After so many years, he hasn't changed. Just like he was in the 100-pill meeting, Qingqiu sported a wide smile. Looking at Zhuofan with a soft gaze, the girls were stunned. Also finding Zhuofan dazzling, the judge motioned for the thunderous applause to stop, and silence reigned again. He chuckled, "Ha ha ha. This fight has been most brief, leaving us with ample time for me to declare this. Let the Superior 3 Sects stage begin. I invite to the arena the 3 great Sects teams." Everyone was taken aback. Then they were excited anew. The strongest 3 sects were about to battle. It would be completely different from the middle 3 sects and lower 3 sects stages. This was a fight between Western Land's strongest disciples, which enraptured the audience. "We best go on the arena, junior brother." Wu Qingqiu smiled and said. Yilin looked bored out of his mind but still squeezed a smile. "When we finish off the other 2 sects, I can finally face off with my fated adversary. I can't wait, ha ha ha." Yen Mo's face twitched. "Yilin, I don't know how strong you are, but don't think for a second Hellion Flame will fall with a simple push. I'm not going to kill you. Just get you out of the way to give us 2 some room to fight." Yilin sneered, but then he looked in Zhuofan's direction with bright eyes. "By the way, we're about to face off. Yet we have yet to meet properly. I think I'll drop by to say hello. Haha. Yilin was gone the next second. Yinimo was shocked by his speed. It was so fast that not even he noticed when he was gone, turning a baffling look at Wu Qingqiu. The guy only shrugged as if to say, "Now you get how deadly junior brother is?" Meanwhile, as the superior 3 Sects teams got into the arena, Zhuo Fan and Sword God Sects disciples shuffled out, placing Qi Changlong and the others back to demon scheming Sect side. When Tao's team gave one last look to Zhuo Fan before leaving a look that was filled with a burning spirit for battle. That intense gaze left Zhuo Fan speechless, but also expectant. Maybe next time they will show him some interesting developments. Then again, finding such a group of martial fanatics driven so hard on his path towards Tao is a fortune. The days with no adversary can be quite lonely. Then Zhuo Fan's heart shook, staring at Ultimate Clarity Sect walking into the arena. He was looking for the youth that gave him the jitters, yet he just couldn't seem to find him. Zhuo Fan, you fought marvelously. Fiend Yang slapped Zhuo Fan's shoulder with a laugh. I was so scared back then you'd be too caught up in it and killed Sword God Sect's disciples. Thank God you saw reason. You know we need time to develop. This is not the time to get on the middle 3 Sects' bad side. Having already messed with Heaven Trailing Sect, if we had them hating us as well, then we'd be pinned in the middle. But now it's fine, you rotten brat, that you went easy. And you even earned a huge favor from Sword God Sect in the process. It might even lead to us becoming allies. Ha ha ha. Your twisted and devious reasoning is becoming more convoluted by the day. You're not Steward Zhuo for nothing. You're of deep machination. Fiend Yang praised while slapping his shoulder, glancing over. Zhuo Fan merely chuckled and sighed. They totally misunderstood him. He didn't put much thought into it. Not to mention he'd be saying goodbye to Demon Scheming Sect after he was done with Double Dragon Gathering. So why would he waste his time thinking about the sect's future? He only spared the 10 disciples because he found them much alike. He could see in them his younger self, sure he had outstanding success and ease in this life, as well as the endless arts and manuals, along with 9 Serenity's secret records and his skills in arrays and alchemy. But they were all due to his past life as a demonic emperor who in this world had not been through struggles and pain. His past self was like Xie Tianshang, growing one step at a time against adversity. Fighting in challenges he knew he couldn't win, skirting death more times than he could count. That was how he finally grabbed the title of the head of the 8 emperors. Seeing these kids behaving just like him struck a chord in his heart, and he couldn't help but go easy on them. It's like how a veteran demonic cultivator, being cruel to the extreme, can harbor a trace of empathy. However, thinking of Fiend Yang's words, this was for the best in the end. The more friends, the more paths. Even if he left the sect and did not care for it, there might come a day he would be in trouble and need help. What was the harm in growing this fast friendship anyway? Zhuo Fan's eyes lit up, and he recalled that there was still one promise he had yet to keep. So he looked around the arena in haste. There, he found Demon Soul Sect's team Venerable. I'm now going to get the sect an ally. It will help greatly when the Heaven Trailing Sect and Mystical Heaven Sect come for us. Zhuo Fan shouted, and his eyes shone a cunning light. Fiend Yang raised an eyebrow, following his gaze. Then he lit up as well. Good, hurry along now. Your actions are always filled with responsibility. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan also chuckled, vanishing the next second and appearing before the Han brothers. Second young Master Han, third young Master Han, may I ask where your brother is? Zhuo Fan cupped his hands, his face filled with worry. Startled, the two jumped back at his sudden appearance. But seeing it was just Zhuo Fan, they returned the gesture. Second young Master Han spoke. Thank you for your concern, Brother Zhuo. Elder brother is still unconscious, but there are no major concerns. That's good. Zhuo Fan nodded and revealed a vial for them. This is a 10th grade pill, Spirit Inception pill. It can restore his soul. Take it and give it to your brother. He'll be as good as new. The two's hearts jumped, looking at the vial in curiosity. A 10th grade pill was practically a marvel with how rare they saw it. However, for some odd reason, the two's behavior was strange. They wanted it, but were reluctant, thus hesitating for a long time. Zhuo Fan frowned, and a strong arm slapped his shoulder just as he was about to inquire. Loud laughter followed it. Brother Zhuo, don't blame them for not taking your pill because they already took my 11th grade, Nascent Soul pill. I told them that men with integrity aren't greedy. Since their brother is fine, there's no need for taking another person's pill. Zhuo Fan's heart jumped in shock, his face filled with horror. When did he get behind me? Why didn't I sense him? This person's odd aura was making him feel unspeakable danger. Turning his head, Zhuo Fan stared at a familiar pair of eyes. He saw in them a strange flame flashing as if in reply. Zhuo Fan's eyes also flashed in azure. Brother Zhuo, we finally meet. Ha ha ha, hello. I am Ultimate Clarity Sects Yilin. We will soon be fighting at last. I am most excited for a battle between Sacred Beast Inheritors. Yilin sported a creepy smile, his eyes taunting Zhuo Fan. Chapter 680, Sacred Beast Inheritor. Chapter 680, Sacred Beast Inheritor. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sacred Beast Inheritor? Zhuo Fan's eyes widened, and he stared blankly at Yilin. This was the first time the word Sacred Beast had been uttered in the mortal domain. On top of that, this guy even said Inheritor. The resonance he felt from the power within him with the ones coming from this guy proved it. He had obtained a Sacred Beast inheritance. Or he's a freaking Sacred Beast to begin with, like young Sanzi. Zhuo Fan's expression became heavy. If he's a Sacred Beast Inheritor, that would mean he is like me but still very much human. But if he's a darn Sacred Beast offspring, does that mean he's a strength freak like young Sanzi? Zhuo Fan gulped, thinking of young Sanzi's outrageous display of power. What's up? Didn't your master ever tell you? You and I are the same, and you shouldn't fear me. Yilin saw through his tense heart and chuckled. Zhuo Fan's eyes shook, the same that means he's still human. This is good. At least he's not outrageously strong. But the moment he noticed his cultivation, his heart sank. First layer ethereal stage. If they were Sacred Beast Inheritors, then the one-stage difference in cultivation spelled awful news for him. Frowning, Zhuo Fan remained silent, giving Yilin the time to smile. Brother Zhuo, weren't you awesome just now? Where has all your energy gone? Didn't I tell you there's no reason to fear me? It's not logical. Beasts fight. So what is there for a Sacred Beast Inheritor to fear? By the way, who is your master? I noticed you have the purple lightning. Maybe it's... Yilin's tone was condescending to the extreme, but Zhuo Fan picked up on the guy's attempt at sounding him out. So he shot back instead. Then, Brother Yi, who is your great master? I asked you first. You answer me, and then I'll answer you. Yilin grinned. Zhuo Fan shook his head. I've been fighting for so many days, and yet you still can't tell who he is? Yilin's brow shook, looking at Zhuo Fan with a vague smile. Zhuo Fan had been fighting a lot and used plenty of ultimate skills. Yilin had a pretty good guess as to who Zhuo Fan's master was, but then Zhuo Fan's skills were also jumbled up. The more Yilin saw, the more shocked he was, confused, and got his heart pumping. Just which Sacred Beast's inheritance does this guy have? One time he used raw power to win, and the next was purple lightning. What's with that space shaking anyway? It's not from the 5 Sacred Beasts, that's for sure, nor in any of their teachings. Yilin was thrown in a loop, so he came to probe him. But it never occurred to him that Zhuo Fan would be so cautious to not leave any room for interpretation. Not even his constant taunts and pestering earned him anything worthwhile. He could only sigh, are all Ultimate Clarity Sect disciples present? The judge's voice came from the arena. Qingqiu cupped his hands, then looked around and saw Yilin next to Zhuo Fan. Junior brother, we're about to start. Hurry up and come back. Shrugging, Yilin's face sank in disappointment. Then he gave one last smile to Zhuo Fan as his eyes flashed. Brother Zhuo, it won't matter if you try to hide it now. When we are trading blows, I will find out exactly who taught you. Also, just as you know alchemy and arrays, they come easy to me as well. Ha. Yilin vanished and reappeared before Qingqiu with a smile so fast. Everyone who saw this felt their hearts shuddering in shock. Even the exalted looked on in curiosity. By May, I fear the kid's speed has exceeded the limits of ethereal stage. Exalted Heiran spoke. Exalted by May nodded, his eyes trailing to Zhuo Fan. This double dragon gathering sure has many seeds. Wasn't that our objective all along? Ha ha ha. The two exalted exchanged a look and nodded. Zhuo Fan followed Yilin's figure with a solemn look. He wanted to see what this unknown Sacred Beast Inheritor was capable of, Was this why he had felt strange since he came to Double Dragon Manor? Because the sacred beast's power made a connection with another? However, the two Han brothers came to wake him up from his daydreaming with a bow. "Forgive us, Brother Zhua. As you heard, he had given us a pill already to heal our brother. We could only refuse you, so it's fine. I understand. He was only taunting me by proving what I can do. So can he, but better. Just like when two savage beasts face each other, they first bare their fangs in a show of strength. I don't mind. Actually, Brother Han, that 11th grade pill would work much faster in healing your brother than my 10th. Everything will be perfect." Zhuofan gave them a smile and a nod. The two's eyes lit up, and they thanked Zhuofan. "Brother Zhua is a true man of virtue. You have our complete admiration and respect. We thought Brother Zhua could not help our brother, so we took someone else's pill. Forgive us. Brother Han, what matters is that he is all right. Appearances have little importance. I'm more than appeased as long as Yunfeng is back to normal. And speaking of respect, it is I who should respect Brother Yunfeng's perseverance and courage." Zhuofan sighed as he spoke from his heart. The Han brothers were touched. Zhuofan is such an open-minded man, so understanding. He truly cares for brother, much more than those damn prancing hypocrites. They exchanged a couple more words of respect, then the brothers left. Once they were gone, Zhuofan flicked his eyes back on Yilin with a sneer. "Little punk, you're still naive if you think you can foil me with a measly pill. Alchemy is but a skill, and with a bit of training, I can cook up 11th grades as well. To people, one's conduct is what matters. You gave them an 11th grade pill and even set up a condition, making them see it as a trade. It'd be a wonder if they'll ever remember you. While I didn't even give them anything, using just a couple of words to make Demon Soul Sect become friendlier. This is how one should be. Doing it yet not saying it is dumb. Not doing it, but saying it is hypocritical. While doing it and saying is the smart way to go. Kid, you might have some sacred beast as a master, but at the end of it all, you're just too naive, humph." Zhuofan looked at Yilin with sharp eyes and flicked the pill vial in his hand before it vanished. "Heh, you saved me a pill." Achoo. As the three sects teams in the arena were drawing lots, Yilin sneezed so hard he almost met the floor. He rubbed his nose, thinking, "Who's talking behind my back?" No matter how much he looked around but found nothing. Then he saw the big guy in front pointing at him and criticizing. Yilin's face fell. "Ultimate Clarity Sect Disciple, your turn." The judge reminded him. Yilin nodded. He put his hand in the box and drew a slip. "Number 2. He's my opponent. That's practically a win." A loud voice sounded, startling Yilin. Looking over, he saw that same big guy going wild with joy. Zhao Daju slapped him hard on the shoulder, laughing. "Junior brother, your luck is good, getting their weakest? This just assures us 2 more points. Of course, I'm in the 4th layer of ethereal stage while he is still in the 1st. It makes no sense for me to lose. Ha ha ha." The big guy was immensely proud of himself. Wu Qingqiu shook his head. "Ignorance sure is bliss, right before the end." If Zhuofan was demon scheming sex freak, then Yilin was ultimate clarity sex freak. What made it worse was their similar nature and their shared love for playing pretend. It was the easiest way for the prey to take the bait. Walking over to the big guy, Yilin spoke coldly. "Hey, did you just mock me? What if I did? What's with the grand ultimate clarity sect, the best sect around, coming here with a fresh ethereal stage disciple? How is such a team worthy of their title of the strongest sect?" The big guy sneered. Zhao Daju added oil to the fire. "Hey, you saw him just now, his speed. There's at least something to him. Senior brother, there's barely any place to run on the small stage. No matter how fast he is, what good will that do? Maybe he'll show his mettle in the team battle? Could be. If a little rat like him starts scurrying around the place, messing things, it will be bad news, ha." As the two talked with gross lack of respect for the 3rd wheel, Yilin felt his face twitch. In other words, you must have gotten the devil's luck to have picked me for an opponent. Right? As you wish. Yilin's eyes flashed with bloodthirst. Stomping away in anger, Wu Qingqiu sighed. The kid is doomed. Chapter 681. Wu Qingqiu's Fury. Chapter 681. Wu Qingqiu's Fury. Proofreader. Papatonks. With everyone having drawn their numbers, the first round of singles was between Universal Righteous Sect and Ultimate Clarity Sect. The first battle that would start this fierce clash would be between Ultimate Clarity Sect's best talent in Western lands, Wu Qingqiu in the 6th layer of Ethereal Stage, and Universal Righteous Sect's most naturally self-righteous disciple, Zhao Dezhu in the 5th layer of Ethereal Stage. The two eyeballed each other, then cupped their hands. Wu Qingqiu started with a smile. "Brother Zhao, after you." "Thank you for your kindness, Brother Wu." Zhao Dezhu replied with the same courtesy. Then he made a sign followed by a palm strike. Quasi-Earth-ranked martial art. Universal palm. Boom. Wind blew out of nowhere into a fierce gale as a gigantic yellow palm crashed like heaven and earth crumbling. It went for Wu Qingqiu with the power to take his body back to the earth where it belonged. The audience gasped in shock and thrilled at the show. Such as a Superior 3 sect. One strike can change the landscape. Zhao Dezhu was seen as one of the best talents in the Superior 3 sects. Worthy of his name, even the exalted double dragons lit up at his feet, making them take out the roster, ha ha ha, just in time. Brother Zhao is capable, worthy of all the preparations I made for today. Wu Qingqiu laughed, feeling like he had just found a worthy adversary to clash with. Among the peers in Western lands, there had to be less than 3 people that could fight him, with Zhao Dezhu being one of them now. In this fight, this best talent of Western lands found the trip worthwhile. Wu Qingqiu laughed because of it as he did his signs, bright clear sky, spinning ether. Whoosh! Wu Qingqiu's palm stuck out in front of him and rotated. Something like a spinning wheel was felt as if it was there. Despite having no form for anyone to see, its power was unmistakable. Go! Wu Qingqiu flicked his hand, and the wheel spun into the air, facing the huge palm. That fierce storm was sucked into the wheel and drifted off in the form of a gentle breeze. Finally, the wheel and the palm made contact in a terrible explosion. The huge palm shook, and then it scattered. Only that wheel kept spinning and enlarging as it ultimately faded, leaving behind the bright blue sky. Such a strong move. It matches perfectly with the world's transitions. Wu Qingqiu is indeed the best talent in Western lands. His insights in the Tao are deeper than his opponents. Exalted by Mei praised, opening the roster and writing on it. These two are heroes of their generation. Today, they have earned their place among the others on this list. Exalted by Mei didn't get to finish writing their names, as Exalted Hei ran waved with a smile. "Let's not be hasty. We should enjoy the show first." Ha! Startled, by Mei eyed the other, then chuckled. "Hey, old man, you're so old, yet you still like to have fun? You just don't want to miss anything. Ha ha ha. Brother Zhao, it's my turn now. Here, take this." Wait. Wu Qingqiu was excited to pit himself against his opponent, but Zhao Dezhu waved with a smile and a gesture of respect. "A great talent like Brother Wu, I am not worthy of stopping. You don't have to continue. I admit defeat." "What?" Wu Qingqiu shook from the shock, then his face grew dark from fury. "Brother Zhao, what is the meaning of this? Brother Wu is too strong that I am in awe. The only option is to concede. Please do not make it hard for me." Zhao Dezhu bowed in respect. The entire audience was stumped. The two had only just begun, and one was giving up just like that? He didn't even try his best. Wu Qingqiu's brow shook with anger. "Brother Zhao, that strike of yours was only at half power. Why would you give up so fast?" Brother Wu must be kidding. Even if I unleashed the quasi-Earth-ranked martial art at full power, Brother Wu would still cancel it. I am more than aware of the gap between us, and I don't wish for us to delay the inevitable. Zhao Dezhu quickly turned to the judge with a bow. "Elder, I concede. Please announce it." The judge held his beard and said, "You have only clashed once. It's still too soon to tell. Does Elder have to see blood being spilled to call it off?" Zhao Dezhu cut off the judge with a rushed speech. The judge huffed and flicked his hand. "I haven't seen a winner, but since you insist on backing out, I will help you. In Universal Righteous Sect versus Ultimate Clarity Sect, the first match goes to Ultimate Clarity Sect." The people looked at one another as they devolved into an uproar. They had barely fought, and it was already over. "We don't see the winner, so how could they?" The audience was perplexed. Only a few figures could read more into it and sneer at Zhao Dezhu. Humph. Does he want to keep his strength for when he goes against Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect? With a snort, Yinamo showed a mocking smile. How is this universal righteous sect even worthy of being a superior 3 sect? They're nothing but cowards and a disgrace. The other disciples were lost, with Yume asking, Senior brother, just what is he up to? You still can't see it? Universal righteous sect's scheme involves focusing on the challenge stage completely. So now they're saving their energy and cutting their losses so as to go all out against the challengers, Sword God Sect and Demon Scheming Sect. Yin Mo's eyes flashed. While their plan is great, this action goes against a cultivator's essence, pushing back against all adversity. Using such a cheap trick would get the exalted furious. Yinamo looked above the audience at the highest spots. The other disciples did the same. In time to see the two Ashen using the rules and the lineups to one's advantage is a basic strategy. With small tricks, one can turn it all around. Exalted He Ran spoke coldly. Zhao Dezhu is very sharp, so much so that he lost his path. Even the middle 3 sects, no cultivators emphasize character to persevere in pursuing Tao. But a talent from a superior 3 sect using petty tricks? He's no different than a mortal. Indeed, I have been too rash just now. How fortunate I didn't write him in as well. He is a man over-encumbered by fame and fortune. This is as far as he'll go. Exalted by Mei sighed and shook his head. He lifted the roster and wrote just one name. Wu Qingqiu. This was how the best talent in Universal Righteous Sect, Zhao Dezhu, lost his chance to enter Double Dragon Manor on the stage. Zhao Dezhu was oblivious of this cruel outcome and bowed in respect. Brother Wu, even if we don't fight, we all know the outcome. I am not your match. It's best to save the energy for vanquishing demons instead. We are both righteous. Brother Wu should understand my pain. Screw your understanding. Wu Qingqiu was so pissed off that he resorted to crude language. Holding back in a single match is an insult to your opponent and an even more shame to you. You're not fit to be a cultivator. Fighting you will only make me sick. I'd much rather ask Demon Soul Sect's eldest young master or Sword God Sect's when Tao for a spar than waste my time with you. Flicking his sleeve, Wu Qingqiu left the stage. Zhao Dezhu took a deep breath, feeling solitude from hearing the audience being against him as well getting back to Universal Righteous Sect's team. The best ass-kisser that ever lived polished his trade. Senior brother, calm your anger. Senior brother is doing it all to stop the demons from succeeding, thinking only of the greater good. How could they ever understand senior brother's pain? Yeah, they may be from righteous sects but can't see evil when meted, being in cahoots instead. Senior brother is, however, making it clear who the demons are. Senior brother is the model example of righteousness among this sea of hypocrites. Zhao Dezhu looked around and nodded. You're the only ones who understand me. Don't worry. Even if they have mistaken my intent and despise me for it, I will stand strong. I, Zhao Dezhu, will definitely grasp victory. Roar. Everyone gave him thunderous support. We'll follow the same plan, getting as many points as possible in the singles round. If you can't score, save your energy after a couple of hits and concede. Ultimate Clarity Sect is a righteous sect and won't resort to killing. It won't drag down our score as much as abstaining, either. Even if we end up as the last of the superior 3 sects, as long as we block Demon Scheming Sect and Sword God Sect, we win. Zhao Dezhu told them their role and looked at the big guy among them. Junior brother, next you will be fighting their weakest. Ultimate Clarity Sect is very strong, with everyone in the 4th layer ethereal stage at the least. Only that kid is a fresh ethereal stage cultivator. While he might be fast on his feet than normal, your soul won't lose to mere speed. Those are points ripe for the taking. You must come back with them. The big guy grinned, looking at Yilin in the distance with a sneer. Don't worry. I'll make sure to give him a proper greeting and give senior brother his honor back. He was totally oblivious to Yilin looking back with the same sinister look. Frickin' prick. You dare curse me? Me? While the true mastermind, Shuo Fan, was casually overlooking these two bitter enemies about to tear into each other.